And thank you again very much for being here. Hopefully you can see on the screen the shared agenda, and the agenda should be in the chat. If not, ask for it and it'll show up. It might have been posted before you came on board. Want to welcome you here. I want to open with our land acknowledgement, and I'm going to blow up the agenda so that you can see this beautiful picture of the distribution of native tribes in California. And there's a link in the agenda to where you can find this and other ways to look up where you are. I would like to acknowledge that we are a statewide organization with members across California's 80 assembly districts, occupying the modern-day state of California that was once home to more than its own 80 tribes, as you can see on this map. We owe a debt to the native peoples of this land who cultivated it and shepherded its people politically among and between these various political polities in a fashion perhaps not unlike our own efforts today. Not sure. But I hope you will use this map and the link in the agenda. It's posted there to find your own little piece of California in order to learn about and acknowledge your own forebears to your own spot of this great state. So, thank you. If you need the link to the agenda, ask in the chat. I want to just take a moment to give an overview of this meeting. We are online for a regular business meeting, but we also will be, this is in association with the executive board in San Diego. We'll meet there for a social with 10 other caucuses jointly on Saturday at 5:45 p.m. this upcoming weekend in the Fairbanks Ballroom D. I hope if you're near San Diego, you will come join us and find us for the joint caucus social. And I want to really thank our members who've settled their membership status for 2026. I really want to shout out our lifetime members and everyone who really voluntarily stepped up to cover membership for the whole group. That we have a number of people who have requested waivers or diminished membership fees. The membership is $15 a year, but people have really stepped up with giving above and beyond, which covers that, and we appreciate it very much. The other structure of this meeting is that we have a programmed meeting here, and we gavelled it in at 7:04. We'll gavel it out at 8:30 or thereabouts, and then the floor will be open to conversation about the ballot propositions, which are of interest to all of us for November and for executive board members for this weekend. So it's time to start thinking about it. That is the shape of our agenda. I would love to hear a motion to approve that. Does that work for the membership? Can I hear a motion to approve our membership? Julie says motion to approve in a muted fashion. Do I hear any objections or see any objections? Raise your hand, flag it, stick your tongue out. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Our agenda is approved by acclamation. We have minutes.
Sorry, Sarah, was that Julie
Greenfield? Yep.
Okay.
We have minutes. You can find them in the agenda. Here's a little thumbnail to them that our Secretary Abba made from February. I'm not sure if anyone's had a chance to see them, but if not, there might be time to look through them now. They looked okay to me. I'm hoping that the membership will consider approving this now. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Corinne is shaking her head. And I will request, and Wade has got his thumb up as a second. Is there any objection to approving the minutes? Seeing none, let me ask a second time and then a third time, and let me mention that we're all friends around here. If you take a look at the minutes and find a problem even after it's approved, I'm sure we can deal with it. Get in touch with me or with Abba, the secretary, and all will be well. So let's consider those minutes approved. And we can move to the program schedule portion of our program. Fortunately, in some ways, fortunately, the Congresswoman is not here yet. I was very worried that we would not be ready for her, but I think we will when she shows up, and we'll be able to move forward with some flexibility that hopefully will be agreeable to everyone. The program, when it came time to think about bringing this to our membership, it seemed to me that the most important thing to address is what it is that we need to address as we're coming close to these elections, what the dangers on the path ahead of us are and look like, and to say their name, say that shibboleth's name, so that we understand it and can address it. That's the idea of what we're going to talk about tonight. I have asked Congresswoman Maxine Waters from the sort of south side of Los Angeles, is a one of our federal representatives, part of the California delegation to the House, and she is the ranking member of the Committee on Financial Services. She is also not here at the moment and can be famously late. But I see that both of our presenters for another section of this program are here. So I propose that we skip ahead a little, and hopefully with the agreement of our two presenters, Donald Cohen and Michele Sutter, we can be flexible when the Congresswoman comes in, because she did ask for a time certain. She's on the East Coast, not all the reasons. And I'm getting thumbs up, and that's terrific. So let's move a little bit forward. Give me a moment to get my introductions, please. I'm really very excited to see here on the screen with us. Let me just check. There's two people in the waiting room. Is any? No. Okay. So let me tell you about our first speaker, or second speaker, Donald Cohen. He's the founder and executive director of the Research and Policy Center in the Public Interest. Grounded in his background as former political director of the San Diego Imperial County's Labor Council, AFL-CIO, he's gone on to found or direct numerous groups, partnerships, and policy shops. I've followed his writing for years and years on privatization and its effects. He's the author of 2 books on this subject and more prestigious articles in top-tier outlets than can be listed. It's a great honor that he has agreed to speak with us on this concept of billionaires as a chief threat that we face today in this election season. Please join me in thanking and welcoming Mr. Donald Cohen.
Thank you. Do you want to stop the share screen so I can see everyone else?
Absolutely. Give me half a second.
Apparently I've been
Stop
spotlighted, but
there we go.
there we go, because I can see everybody. Anyway.
Yep.
It's good to see you all. So sorry, I need a better background, don't I? It's just my closet. My office closet. I have been running in the public interest of the organization that I created and lead for about 16, 17 years. And we focus on lifting up and exposing the impacts of privatization on everything public. So I'm just going to talk for a few minutes, right, Sarah? Because I know that this was just brief. So I wrote a book. It's 300 pages. I'm not giving you I'm not going to do a dramatic reading of that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell you 3 or 4 things. The first is I want to give you my definition of privatization. And all of this, of course, we can think about how important the elections is in each one of these. So my definition and you'll see why I'm saying this. My definition of privatization is private control over public goods. And so I need to define public goods for you. I don't know if there's any economists on the call, but it's not the classical economics textbook definition of public goods. It's a democratic conception of public goods. And it's a 3-part definition. One, it's the things that we all need to get through life, to thrive. clean air, education and knowledge, a home, healthcare, and the access to the internet now is has become an essential to make it through life. So that's number one. It's everything that we need. It's the basics. Second part of the definition, it's the things that we need everyone to have, regardless of whether you need them yourself. It's in everyone's interest for every child to be educated to the, fully educated and highly educated, regardless of whether you have children or not. It's in our economic interest, political interest, social interest, for everyone to have that. During COVID, I used to say it was pretty clear the health of all of us depended on the health of each of us, regardless of how much money you had. So that's the second part. We need everyone to have it. And not just a matter of values. It's in our interest for everyone to have it, although we have those values as well. The third part of the definition is that if we believe all means all, that the public means all, and that we want these things for everyone, then the only way to accomplish that is if we do them together. And that is through the institutions of government. It doesn't necessarily mean there's not private companies involved in stuff, but you can't get universal health care without government involvement. You can't put a letter in every mailbox in the country at the same price without government involvement. You can kind of go on and on about that. So that's the definition. So I want to talk about three threats and I see three pieces of privatization. This will get us right down to the threats that we all see every day if we open the newspaper. First way that private control is given to public goods is by contracting. We contract for, private prisons, private detention centers, water systems, school vouchers. And we're basically, in the case of private prisons, this government's complicated. There's a lot of things. In the case of private prisons, what becomes very clear is that the private prison companies' interests, legitimate business interests, as it were, is to put more heads in beds. They make more money on per diem heads in beds. That is totally counter to our interests, and is also in their interest to make a profit. And that is also against our interest because that profit is money that could be going to provide drug treatment, job training, and a whole lot of other things that you would do in a sane correction system. Thanks, John, for the thumbs up. That's the first part. The second part, way that privatization, we get private control, is austerity. If the things that we all need are not available publicly, then we are on our own, private individuals, in the market to secure those things. Healthcare, childcare. I believe childcare is a fully privatized public good for the most part. There are some public. So then, we're sort of on our own in the market. We've turned a public thing into a private thing that we can get. And we know that private things, markets exclude. Markets, markets don't create things and offer things for people who don't have any money. Just the nature of markets. If you don't have money, you don't get the thing. We've seen that in healthcare for forever, actually, here. So that's the third thing. And we can look all kinds of stuff. That's the second thing. Right? The third piece is deregulation. Let me tell you why I think that's part of private control. Best way to give it is, I'd like to give it an example. If there is a polluter of toxic emissions next to a school, public school or any kind of school, and they are under-regulated, regulations exist, but under-enforced, and that company is putting toxics in the air, then we're essentially giving that private company control over the health of those kids at some level, right? And so you could see that air, climate, deregulation. You take all these things, air pollution. You can go down the list of what's happening right now in the federal government. Medicine, water, food, everything is either being deregulated, the regulatory apparatus, enforcement apparatus is being chopped away. All those things leave us on our own to go figure it out. If you don't want to be, in the way they think, if you don't want to be near a poison school, then get a better job and move. That's sort of private individualism. So I want to just, and literally, you're talking about the elections. I don't think I need to tell Democratic Party how important these things are, because if we don't get control of the House, we've seen definitely a different administration, number two rather than number one. Each one of these, they're selling off government, they're handing it over, they're cutting taxes, they're deregulating. All of these things are making to the theme that Sarah asked me to talk about, are making the billionaires richer and the rest of us less safe and secure. So let me leave it at that. Sarah, is that kind of what you want me to talk about?
Uh, sure. Very much. I'm hoping to hear some perspective of how the billionaires might be laying in on this, but I think the Congresswoman is in the room right now, so maybe we can skip to her and we'll come back and hear from Michele Sutter in a moment. And if you have more thoughts on that, that'll be great too. So I'm very excited I don't see, oh yes, I see the Congresswoman now. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm very excited that you're here with the caucus. She is the Congressional District 43's Honorable Maxine Waters. Auntie Maxine, as she is familiarly known, has been fighting for her constituents since 1976. That's 50 years. First from the state assembly here in California and then the federal House of Representatives. Her trajectory from former Head Start teacher to ranking member of the House Committee on Financial Services situates her perfectly to share with us how we and our representatives claw back the federal cuts to health and welfare and education so integral to our children's support network. I am thrilled to be able to present to the Children's Caucus Congresswoman Maxine Waters. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight and telling us about the fierce fight you engage daily on our children's behalf. Congresswoman Waters, did I do something? I think you were here. I tried to spotlight you and it went funny on us.
She shows up in the participants, but I think maybe the video
Yeah,
is not
got
on.
it. Uh-huh.
Now,
Hello, Ms. Congresswoman. Thank you so much for being here. Can you hear us? I still see you as um muted.
Yeah, I am.
Oh,
I
there
can
we go.
hear you.
No, we've got you too.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
no
good,
video.
good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Yes, I was surprised when I got the invitation because, financial services, the Black Caucus is going on, the Latin Caucus is going on. But I all of a sudden felt, you know, I'm so pleased about this invitation because it brings me back to my days in Head Start. And of course, Head Start is where I really, really developed my politics, dealing with, the government, the federal government, and the need for child care and for early childhood education and all of that. So I'm pleased to be here with you. The first thing I want to share with you is recently, HHS, rather, promulgated final rules that would roll back critical improvements to the child care and development fund, and which is an effort um, that will raise children's costs and lower pay for children, child care providers. Child care is already an enormous expense for families, and providers are struggling with low pay but keep their doors open. These new rules go into effect next week, and on July, I think it is the 13th, we will want to join with all of the co-sponsors who have introduced the legislation that you guys are helping to educate people about. I think you have Representatives Bonamici and Jacobs to co-sponsor a Congressional Review Act, CRA resolution, and that is, I believe that is HR Res 195. So I'm glad to be here. Now, I was just reading from a note that I had that I could barely see. So if I sounded a little funny, it is because I was trying to read something that I could not see that well because I didn't have my glasses. However, there's so much to talk about. First of all, thank you for the resolution. Thank you for understanding how important it is, first of all, to have child care. We have so many families that could not even be in a job going to work every day if they didn't have child care. And child care is very, very expensive. And so, of course, we're in this fight. Of course, we're going to do everything that we can. But as you know, unfortunately, the Constitution of the United States does not tell the president everything he can't do. The President of the United States has the power to do whatever he wants to do, and that's exactly what he's doing now. A lot of people are so disgusted, and they say, can't you do something about him? Well, unfortunately, those of us who care about these child care issues and other issues such as Medicare and Medicaid and all of the education issues that we're concerned about, the child care, the housing, all of these issues that so many of us have worked so hard for so many years are now being ripped apart and undermined by the President of the United States of America because it has the power to do so without us having the majority vote in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. And so he's so bold and he's so brazen until he's talking about he's going to run for president again. He's going to defy the Constitution of the United States. I don't know how he thinks he's going to do that. But first of all, we're going to be fighting continuously with every bit of breath that we have in our bodies. We don't intend for this president who is tearing up this country to be able illegally to run for president again. So I don't know what scheme he has up and what he's thinking about, but the fight is ongoing. And we have to be very, very careful that we don't allow something to unfold that would allow him to even run for president again. Having said that, we're in a terrible situation with a cruel individual. I've talked about this individual as being, a combination of the three C's: cruel, corrupt, and crazy. I know there are many words to describe this administration, but these come to mind. Cruel. Cruelty is the intention behind Trump's policies. Trump's big, ugly bill gutted Americans' health care and ripped food from hungry families, seniors, and veterans and kids. It cut 186 billion from SNAP, commonly known as food stamps, taking food away from poor children and families. It cut almost $1 trillion from Medicaid, Medi-Cal, right here in California, basically leaving millions of families without access to health care. Trump's big, ugly bill, as we call it, did all of this to make it easier for his billionaire friends to pay less in taxes. More than 4 million Americans, including more than 1 million children, have already been kicked off of SNAP since the big ugly bill was signed into law. Families are struggling to put food on the table as Trump's tariffs and reckless policies and corporate greed keep prices high. More than 8 million Americans have already lost their health care, and tens of millions have seen their premiums skyrocket. Americans are being forced to choose between getting the health care that they need and paying for rent and groceries. And when I say rent and groceries, I really mean that. This is an affordability crisis that we're in. The price of groceries has skyrocketed. People are unable to have 3 meals a day. There are people now having 1 meal a day, skipping meals because they cannot afford to pay the price for the groceries that have skyrocketed. And of course, gasoline. The gas prices are unreal. Even if you have an automobile, if you don't have a lot of income, you can't afford to put the gas in the car that's needed to get to the job. And so many Americans are suffering in ways that many who are very well off, the rich, the billionaires, don't care or don't understand. And so when you talk about the children, you can imagine some of what I'm describing, where children are not getting the nutrition that they need. They don't have the health care that they need. And as children are trying to go to school, they need the very basic shoes and clothing. Everything is sky high. And so, coming from Head Start, where we built this nation to be able to assist families and to do everything that they could to invest in the children so that they could grow up healthy and have a good career to look forward to, because we had education, we had everything that any family would need. But of course, they're trying to kill the Department of Education. As a matter of fact, they've undermined it so much, they're even moving it out of the building that's theirs and moving it over into the Justice Department. And why are they doing that? They want to keep cutting away at many of the laws and the rules that we have put together to be of assistance for public education, which they do not want. And so I'm so pleased that the Children's Caucus is holding this meeting today and will be up front in the conference that we're having in San Diego, our state conference, so that we can refocus on the children and the families. I'm so worried that in education, I believe it is Title 20 that helps those families who do not have a lot of income. And it puts the children on a level playing field with those children who are in richer environments where they get all of the materials and the supplies and the vacations and the trips and all of that. Title 20, I believe it is, of education helps to provide many of those things for children who live in low income neighborhoods. Otherwise, they would not have the kind of assistance that others are getting who are in the better off neighborhoods with the parents who are making a lot more money. Thank you for, being the focus of this today. The president, you know, is not only cruel, corrupt, and crazy. I want you to know we have some other words for him also. And they are words that are not necessarily kind, but we didn't intend to be kind because we want to make sure that we sound the alarm. The other three R's that we have is racy, righteous, and radical. And these three words describe his character. Trump not only is a racist, he's dismantling Black and brown districts all across the South to dilute the voting power. He has pressured the Smithsonian to remove anything that talks about our history, the history of slavery. His administration even removed the word racist from the National Park Service materials. And I don't know if you guys remember Medgar Evers, who was assassinated. He went in and he saw his brochures and he took them out. And he's now going throughout the African American Museum demanding that they remove certain things. They're fighting back. But this cruel man, this man who has no respect for the Constitution of the United States of America, no respect for democracy and what it all means, does not care about the children. Of course, he cares about his own. Barron owns cryptocurrency now. He has millions of dollars as a young man. And that is absolutely shameful in the way that he looks at what he can do for his son, but does not look at what we can all do for our children and how we could give them the resources and invest in them so that they could have a fair chance of breaking, all of the poverty, too much poverty that we have in this country, that they can basically close that wealth gap someday. But with this president, it's not going to happen in his term of office. And if he gets another term of office, he will make sure that it does not happen. I know all of this sounds so pessimistic, but we got to face it, just like you're doing. And we've got to educate everybody just like you're doing, so that people don't think, well, it'll be over soon, or the Democrats will stop him. We can only stop him with the vote. We can only stop him with the vote. We've got to get all the mega uh, uh, friends of his and associates and sycophants of his. We got to get them out of these offices. Those who are running for reelection, we're fighting against them to keep more from coming. We are doing everything that we can. We hold town hall meetings. We're on the internet. We're trying to keep people involved. We even now, thank God, have Democratic members who are going into Republican districts and fronting them off and letting people know where the health care is being undermined and where the cost of groceries has gone up. He promised when he got elected that he was going to reduce the cost of groceries. Instead, they've just gone up. He's lied about everything. And so he's so busy carrying out his unusual and crazy ideas. He tore down the East Wing in the White House. He didn't come to Congress to ask if he could do this. He's torn it down, and he is going to cost billions of dollars to make it into a big showroom of some kind that they can have parties in with his friends and his associates. This man has not only done that, he wanted to take over the Kennedy Center, which he's basically done. And he put his name on it, but we finally got the courts to make him take his name down. He hasn't done it yet. He's covered it up because he doesn't want to take it down. But the Kennedy Center is not working because all of those who would like to perform there said, no, hell no, we're not going to perform as long as he's the president of the United States. So we're in a crisis in this country. I've just passed the biggest bill on housing, worked on it a year and a half with Hill, and absolutely forced Scott and some others to come together around this crisis, not only in Democratic districts, but in Republican districts also. So we have finally, after 30 years, with no big housing bill, we've put something together. We've worked hard with even those that we disagree with on a lot of other things, and we got it done. We set up for the signing of it. I was very, very leery about being with him for even the signing because he has a tendency to call names. And he decided that he wasn't going to sign it unless we included in it the SAVE Act so that he could destroy elections in this country. And so, with the room all set up and ready for him to sign it, he canceled it. He canceled the signing. But, you know, the Constitution does say if it's not signed in 10 days, it automatically becomes law. So I'm so pleased that his name is not going to be on it, period, because he refused to sign it. But that's just a little of the discomfort, the anxiety, and the way that we feel about this president, as so many of you in the room where I'm talking feel about him. But we've got to work as hard as we can. God bless the children. We've got to save the children from this disaster that they're confronted with. We've got to do everything that we can. The food lines are getting longer, and part of the work that we do is helping to distribute food. And we have people who are in line for food who work in many of our industries like Walmart and Amazon and places where they're working every day, but not getting paid the salaries that they deserve to meet the needs of what is going on in this country. And so we've got to work very hard to take back the country from him. We've got to work very hard to see that he does not get reelected. with some scheme that he's trying to come forward with. So thank you for focusing on the children at our state conference. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the work that you always do on behalf of the children. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We were we were hoping you would have more optimistic things to say, but you're absolutely right. Our job here is to get Democrats elected so that you are not in this terrible position that you face every single day in the Capitol with the Mad King. So, and as you point out so cogently and perfectly, we do this every day we wake up for the children. That's why we do it. That's why any of us does any of this for tomorrow. But we have to take care of today. So many thank yous, Congresswoman. I know you have an incredibly busy schedule, and for you to shoehorn us in is really appreciated. And we hope you'll stay as long as your schedule and interest allows. We'll move to the other part, another part of our program, seeking an understanding of the threats that are right ahead of us while we're coming up on this election. We heard from Donald Cohen, the executive director and founder of In the Public Interest. I think we'll move now to our second speaker on this, if that's all right. Michele Sutter. She's been long involved with voting rights advocacy and co-founding the elections rights group Money Out, Voters In, which was involved with 2012's Proposition 49 here in California, a regrettably thwarted effort to overturn Citizens United. One-time HBO screenwriter and a former ASL teacher, she's master of the language, a skill periodically leveled towards Sacramento on behalf of the Los Angeles County Central Committee, for which she crafts legislative position letters. Please join me in welcoming Michele Sutter as she shares her perspective on the most dangerous threats we face here coming on November's upcoming elections. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah, and good evening, everyone. Yes, I was part of the thwarted Prop 49 effort where the Supreme Court threw us off the ballot, the California Supreme Court. However, we returned in 2016, and Prop 59, the Overturned Citizens United Act, was actually passed by the people of California, which instructed all of it was a voter instruction instructing all of our representatives to use all of their constitutional authority to overturn Citizens United and the underlying precedents. So as the co-founder and president of Money Out, Voters In, we have been working to make the folks who represent us in California live up to that instruction. When Sarah asked me to speak about billionaires, I think the way you phrased it, Sarah, was, are they the greatest threat to democracy? And my answer to that is a resounding yes. They are, and for a number of reasons. So when the Supreme Court handed down the Citizens United ruling in 2010, that applied to corporations, and the rationale that the court used was that corporations could spend unlimited amounts of money from their treasuries in our elections because corporations were, quote unquote, associations of citizens. Anthony Kennedy repeated that in that decision about 3 times. But what we now know in 2026 is that at least 42% of all the shares held in U.S. corporations are held by foreign investors. So if our bill, the Get Foreign Money Out of U.S. Elections Act, actually becomes law and is challenged, we think the court's going to have a really difficult time saying that foreign money is fine in our elections when U.S. election code is very specific that no foreign money is permitted in U.S. elections, contributed either directly or indirectly. And I'm delighted to report that Jamie Raskin in the House and Senator Whitehouse in the Senate have reintroduced that legislation into the Congress just last week. And of course, we hope to get it reintroduced into the California legislature for the 2027 session. But more germane to our topic tonight is what the court did in 2014, which was a case called McCutcheon versus the FEC, where a really, really rich guy named Sean McCutcheon didn't think he should be held to the limit of $600,000 spent in a given cycle. And unsurprisingly, the Roberts Court agreed with him, and that is what opened up this flood of billionaire money, unfettered billionaire money in our elections. There is also a bill to deal with that, which Bernie Sanders has introduced into the Senate and Summer Lee has introduced into the Congress. It's called Ending Super PACs, and it would limit super PAC contributions to the federal limit on regular PAC contributions, which is $5,000. So Elon Musk would have been allowed to create a super PAC and contribute $5,000 instead of whatever it was, $237 million, I think. He donated through a super PAC to help elect Donald Trump in 2024. That piece of legislation was also voted on in the state of Maine in 2024. And Maine, the citizens of Maine, passed that with over 75% of the vote. And of course, that is being challenged in court. And that case that trial is supposed to begin this week. So, I will certainly keep Sarah apprised of that, but that would be an enormous advance. So keep your eye on all of that. Just pivoting to billionaires, I would actually go farther than the Congresswoman. I would go farther than cruel, corrupt, and crazy. I would squarely lay fascist on Donald Trump and the billionaires who are supporting him. When Citizens United came down, actually, those of us in this money and politics space said 15 years from now, America, if we don't do something about this, we're going to be a fascist state. And I think that has happened to us. And I'll just read you the American Heritage definition of fascism, which is a system of government marked by centralization of authority under a dictator, a capitalist economy subject to stringent governmental controls, violent suppression of the opposition, and typically a policy of belligerent nationalism and racism. And I feel like that is precisely where you are. I don't know if you all remember Steve Schmidt, a Republican operative, one of the two people who was responsible for giving us Sarah Palin, along with Bill Kristol. And he's traveling around the country with something called the Save America movement. And he is very squarely saying that it's fascism versus the rest of us. So these billionaires who have, contributed already $1.3 billion in this cycle, in the 2026 election, that's their plan for us. And when thinking about how does this affect our kids, the place where I went to immediately on this is media. And you will remember that Thomas Jefferson wrote that a well-informed electorate is a prerequisite to democracy. But what we have, which, has been a years-long, decades-long project of the right, which is to deregulate media. And it began with Ronald Reagan Xing out the fairness doctrine, and it got turbocharged by Bill Clinton signing the Telecommunications Act of 1996, where he also gave Rupert Murdoch an exception because at that point we couldn't have any foreign ownership of U.S. media, and Bill Clinton made an exception for Rupert Murdoch. And now, as we know, we're in a situation where Rupert Murdoch has, everything we know he's got going on. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. Mark Zuckerberg has Facebook and Meta. Elon Musk has X. Our own Patrick Soon-Shiang of the Los Angeles Times owns the Los Angeles Times, and he famously, in the fall of 2024, killed a 7-part series that his editors had prepared called The Case Against Trump, and that never that was never published. Mike Bloomberg also has the whole Bloomberg network. We've seen what the Ellisons are doing with Paramount, Skydance, Warner Brothers, and what that bodes. And a guy whom I've really disliked for a really long time named John Malone owns Liberty Media, and he's part of this whole Warner Brothers Discovery thing. He's a really bad actor who has stayed under the radar. But when billionaires own media, we don't know what's happening. And I think that this is the greatest single threat to a functioning democracy and the greatest threat to our kids. And as I think a paid up member in good standing of the California Democratic Party's Children's Caucus, what I would advocate for, and Movi tries to do a lot of public education. And one of the things in their dismantling their, again, decades-long mission to undermine public education, underfunding, sending the money elsewhere, doing charter schools, doing vouchers, all the things that they do, is that civic education has been removed from our schools. And I think one of the things that we can do is to make the case that not only do we need to restore civic education, but as part of that civic education, we need a media literacy component so that we teach kids and adults as well, because adults don't know how to do this either. How do you figure out who's speaking? What's their angle? What do they want you to believe? What are they selling? I think this is all vitally important, and it's especially important when you get into the social media space with kids and the way kids are targeted there. So billionaires want no good thing for us. And I've had the pleasure of knowing a fair number of billionaires. I don't believe they were billionaires when I began to meet them, but one of my first jobs was for a guy named Herbert Allen of Allen and Company, and he is the guy who holds the Sun Valley Conference every year. I don't know if you're familiar with that gathering of all the media moguls who go to Sun Valley to hang out with Herbie Allen. And the lack of empathy that Trump exhibits is a through line with these people. They are, I think we can fairly well say that they are largely sociopaths. I know there are a couple who are not. I would put Tom Steyer in the category of billionaires who aren't sociopaths, as far as billionaires I know. But it is that we have ceded our democracy to these miscreants and thieves is very disturbing. I'd like to drop a couple of things in the chat and I'm sorry, I didn't have this lined up well enough. Hold on. One of them is a
Okay.
guy. Yeah.
We'll ask you to drop them in the chat in a moment.
Oh, great.
and
I
then
can
we'll go
stop
forward.
and you guys go on. Awesome.
No, I mean, miscreants and thieves. I think that the through line here also is how we, you know, how we address this moving forward. And that's very much, so we've heard what it is that they're doing. We've heard how to recognize them and how that affects our children. And now as a caucus, we'd like to turn to the notion of how we're going to not just pound the pavement to do something about this, but how the party supports us in this action, and how we can contribute and pitch in. I think that CADEM, this California Democratic Party, CDP, has a very admirable program in place, and we're very lucky to have with us tonight Coby King, who runs that program. You may know him as the California Democratic Party's own OG rules guy, the parliamentarian that greases the skids and keeps the rules moving, but he's more than that. He runs our party's tremendously effective voter protection services, a telephone hotline, and gale force network of supporters holding the collective backs of real life individuals out there, us, caucus members at the polls watching and monitoring. I know this because I'm a veteran of numerous such endeavors for all my life, 40, 50 years. I've never encountered one so powerful as CADEM's program. It's an amazing feeling. And I asked Mr. King here tonight, therefore, in order to share with us as individuals what this specific opportunity provides and promises, how we can use this to be addressing the threats that we've been hearing. I hope he'll present this hands-on set of options for nonviolent pushback available to all of us as volunteers. So thank you, Michele, for your speech, your talk. I'm not sure if I thanked you adequately. And thank you, Mr. King, for being here. When I find you, I will spotlight you.
Sarah,
Thank you,
if I
Sarah.
might just interject, my
Yes,
internet's
please.
going screwy, so I'm going to get you the links that I was going to send you at a later date. I can't pull them up at the moment. So
That's perfect. And this, just as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and it will be online on our YouTube channel. But we can send all this information out, and we have a newsletter. It's all available. If anyone has something to say, send away. Sorry, Mr. King. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Sarah, and thanks for putting together this this meeting tonight. Appreciate everything that you and the Children's Caucus do, and also appreciate that very kind introduction. I hope, yeah, I hope to see many of you in San Diego this weekend at our executive board, where we will take up a lot of interesting issues that the Rules Committee and also continue to push forward the Democratic agenda. I know there's a lot of propositions that we'll be taking a position on this weekend as well. But thanks for asking me to talk about voter protection. It's something that is pretty near and dear to my heart. I've been, as you mentioned, I run at least the legal side of the party's voter protection program, and have done so for probably coming on 35 years now. In fact, I graduated from law school back in '91, and one of the first things I did was figure out how I could get involved in voter protection programs here in California, and immediately got roped into what the party was doing out here. When I lived in DC, I did a lot of kind of some voter protection stuff, but more the usual canvassing all over the Eastern Seaboard and just trying to participate as best I can. The party's program started around the same time that I did, back in '92. It was established to protect the rights of voters all over California. And for those of you who've got as much gray hair as I do, you might remember that back in the late '80s, the Orange County Republican Party had put together pretty what seems today pretty outrageous program of voter intimidation, especially in the more Latino areas of the county. And what happened out of that is a series of new state laws were put into place to more specifically outlaw those kinds of blatant voter intimidation tactics. And in fact, the Orange County Republican Party was sued over many of these tactics and was bankrupted for a while. So back in '92, we started the party started a program. I was a young baby lawyer back then and got involved and got trained. And it was back then it was called Election Watch, and that was the first time that I met a guy named Steve Camp, who some of you may know, and also just a long time election law expert. And in the '94 campaign, I actually then ran Southern California, and since '96. For now, it'll be my 30th year running the state, at least from a legal protection point of view. So let me, Sarah kind of mentioned this, but let me lay out kind of the basics of how California's program works. And we can also talk a little bit about how each of you can get involved, depending on your interest and training. So really where the heart of the program is the hotline. And what some of you may know, Emma Harper, the party's operations staff. She has developed this incredible hotline over a couple of decades. And I remember, probably back in the late '90s and well into the 2000s and even the teens, where there was a boiler room at the party office, and people would do shifts and they would answer the phones, and I'll explain kind of what the operators do. But that ended quite some time ago. Certainly, by the time COVID rolled around, we were already moving to a more remote system, and that is what we have right now. There's not surprisingly, there's a hotline app, and people attend to training. And they learn what kind of things they might get asked and how to respond. But it's all of the calls come in through your own mobile phone, and that's how the program operates right now. Partly because of that, we've been able to really scale up the program and to really be very flexible as to the kinds of shifts that people can take on if they want to. But essentially, that hotline is one of I would say, the two nerve centers to the voter protection. The other aspects of it are that we do have a number of people in the field. How many people that we put into the field and where we put them changes year to year, depending on the priorities and depending on what's on the ballot and where the frontline districts are. For the last many years, not surprisingly, there have been very significant efforts in the purple districts in the Central Valley and in the Inland Empire, northern Los Angeles County, kind of the suburbs of the Bay Area as well, the places where we're fighting to win both congressional seats and also legislative seats. But in many years, especially when we have important statewide items on the ballot, whether it be propositions or races, we'll also be making sure that we run up the score in the big blue counties, and so the core counties in the Bay Area and also Los Angeles County, of course. Orange County has become more and more of a stronghold for the party, and so we want to make sure that we have a really good presence there, and down in San Diego and parts of the Inland Empire have become pretty blue as well. So really do try to have a balanced program. And when I say people out in the field, they are literally going and visiting polling places and canvassing and doing all the kinds of things that people are used to in terms of election day and election weekend and those kinds of activities. The third piece of the puzzle, the third piece of the puzzle is a system called LBJ, and we think of it as an incident control system. And it is a database that where either hotline operators or people in the field, depending on the permissions and the training that they've gotten, can actually create incident reports so that we have a sense of what's going on out in the field. Now, the way as I kind of implied, the way those incident reports get created is one of two ways. One, somebody will call the hotline. Let's step back for a moment and talk a little bit about what kind of calls generally come into the hotline. I would say that you could divide the two basic kinds of calls into two large categories. One is you've got people who are just calling to ask the party, where should I vote? They might have questions about the mechanics of filling out a ballot, or where can they drop it off? And in California, you may be aware that we have two kind of distinct systems in California, one that is based on vote centers and the other is based on the traditional polling places that we all grew up with. But the hotline operator will identify where the person lives and will be able to give them the kind of information they need in order to, what to do, how to fill out the ballot, where to drop it off, etc. And I'll get into postal using the post office versus drop boxes in a moment. But the other kinds of calls, also these kind of informational calls, are simply who should I vote for? And so based on decisions that the party has made at its convention, based on decisions that we'll make this weekend at executive board, hotline operators will provide voters with information on not just how they should fill out their ballot, but who they should vote for. So these kind of informational calls make up a big chunk of the calls that come into our hotline, and I think they do have an impact on the election. The other kinds of calls that come into the hotline are what we might call calls that would result in an incident report. So an incident report, I then divide that into kind of two basic categories. One is what I would call non-intentional issues at a polling place. And this could be where maybe there's long lines because more people have shown up than the registrar in that county anticipated. Maybe there isn't enough parking. Maybe there's an issue with ADA compliance. Maybe there are broken voting machines, or maybe even, and this still occasionally happens, the voting location didn't open on time. Those kinds of issues are things that we want to know about. And one of the interesting things, as the way our program has developed over the decades, is that many of the registrars understand that oftentimes we, the hotline, the California Democratic Party hotline, because it's so well developed, will find out issues that are going on at particular polling places before the registrar does. As I often stress to the registrars, we often serve as extra eyes and ears all over the state. And the registrars are often very grateful to the fact that we're able to tell them, hey, look, we're getting a variety of calls having to do with this particular voting location. There's not enough parking, or there's something going on over there. You should get somebody over there and check it out. And those calls tend to be, pretty calm, pretty straightforward, and we'll get that information to the registrars. And, the registrars, no matter what county they're in, with some minor exceptions, are really just interested in running a good, clean election according to California law. And just about all the registrars are pretty cooperative with us. All right, so I did say that those were kind of non-intentional sort of problems that just, it's part of having human beings running these elections. But the other kind is the kind that are even more important, because those are the ones where we might have voter intimidation issues. Now, some of you are probably aware that there's a variety of restrictions as to the kinds of activities that can occur both within a polling place and even within 100 feet of a polling place. Generally, the word that everybody uses is electioneering. Certain kinds of activities can't take place within a 100-foot line. It's even more restrictive once you get inside the polling place. And in addition, though, Now, electioneering is actually pretty strictly defined. I won't get into that definition right now, but electioneering is really just a subset of a more general category of voter intimidation. And voter intimidation, trying to influence somebody's vote through coercion or by the display of a firearm or the display of a weapon or the wearing of a security officer's uniform, those kinds of activities and the fact that they're illegal is not restricted to that 100-foot barrier. If someone is camped in a security office uniform, brandishing a gun and a sign that says voter fraud is illegal and you can be sent to prison, if they're standing 101 feet away from the polling place, they are still guilty of voter intimidation. And what we tell our folks in the field, and we also get the word out to voters as much as possible, call in and we will take care of it. And the registrars generally are pretty interested in taking care of those as well. Sometimes the incidents get even more serious, and we'll not only call the registrar, but we will also send one of our attorneys down to the polling place to check things out. And sometimes we'll also call local police or sheriff to make sure that they're enforcing the law against voter intimidation as well. Now, I've made reference to making calls into registrars and sending an attorney. So, we've so far, most of the things that I've talked about in terms of people in the field and the people answering the hotlines, those are for the most part non-lawyers. And for those of you out there who are not lawyers and you'd like to participate in our voter protection program, there's all kinds of opportunities for you. As we get closer to Labor Day, we'll start ramping up the program, start a series of trainings, and people can participate however they want. However, we're also looking for lawyers, and the lawyers really have two different jobs. One is, I would say, one way that I would think about it is that they're kind of my deputies. I look at every single incident report that is created on this LBJ system, and I take a look, decide quickly if there's something that we can actually do about it. And then generally I will either call into the registrar myself, depending on how slow or heavy a day it is. And I see Annalisa, who has participated in our program a number of times. Thank you, Annalisa. Good to see you. But also what we'll do is we'll have lawyers that are ready to handle different shifts. Often we'll be assigned particular counties, and I'll just assign that particular incident to the lawyer who's available that day, and then that lawyer will be the one who will call into the registrar, potentially escalate it to PD, or take whatever action is necessary. In addition, I do have a number of lawyers who I know are going to be either stationed near places that we tend to know from our decades of experience, tend to be the hotspots around California. So we'll have lawyers stationed there. And really what we like to do with the lawyers, with our field people, they're mostly just kind of issue spotting, and then they're instructed really to call things into the hotline, and for the most part, let the lawyers take care of it. Usually a phone call into the registrar, or, if we do have to escalate into law enforcement, usually takes care of it. But we also sometimes do want to send law enforcement, or we want to send one of our own lawyers down to take a look at it themselves. One of the real advantages to the LBJ system is that a whole variety of people have access to the various incident reports, and so it's a collaborative effort to create as much evidence as possible and also to get the full story. One of the cool things about LBJ as well is that if you get multiple incidents for the same voting location, you can quickly spot issues. There was a time in Los Angeles County where we were getting reports from different voting locations throughout the county early in the day about longtime voters who had not changed their address, but their names were not appearing on the voter rolls. And we quickly figured out that there was some kind of a problem with the rolls. I called into the registrar and I said, hey, this is really odd. You know, I've been doing this for a long time. We're hearing the kinds of reports where it indicates you might have some kind of a problem. And sure enough, they did. There was a software glitch. And in some of the voting locations around the county, not everyone's names had made it onto the roll. And so they took pretty quick action to try to fix it. But it's those sort of things, by having a centralized system and by having a lot of people out there, that we're able to issue spot things even sometimes before the registrars are. So for those of you who are attorneys and are interested in participating, we'll be recruiting for those folks later on, again, probably as we get into around Labor Day. We do offer a training that will get you 1.5 hours of continuing legal education credit. State Bar has approved our education program for probably coming up on 10 years now. And it's a pretty thorough program, about 90 minutes worth of overview of the latest in California election law. And then we do about a half an hour of how the program actually operates, how people actually will participate, and how they can participate, and how to sign up for shifts and all that sort of thing. So that's kind of an overview of how our program operates. We do try to improve it every single year, and the numbers participant go up and down. I think we're going to have a pretty strong year this year. I just want to spend just another couple of minutes on some of the particular threats that we're seeing from the Trump administration this year.
And also tell us how the rest of us can be involved, but we'll get links from you for that later.
Well, sure.
Okay.
Again, as I said, there are two main ways of being involved, or three main ways. One, if you're a lawyer, get involved in the legal side. And two, if you're not a lawyer, volunteer either for the hotline or for the folks who are going around in the field and who are actually, and if you're willing to travel to the Central Valley or to the Inland Empire, you don't live out there, and that's something you're interested in, then great. But there are all kinds of ways that we can get you plugged in. In terms of the Trump administration, some of you may be familiar that just in the last couple of days, so just to backtrack a little bit, back in March, the president issued an executive order which purported to restrict mail-in voting, purported to create a system whereby states would be required to submit voter lists to the Department of Justice, which would then check those lists for validity and then would pass along a list to the Postal Service as to which mail-in ballots it would be allowed to deliver. This is, to say the least, absolutely insane, completely unconstitutional. A district court, when a number of AGs from around the country filed lawsuit immediately. A district court did not take very long to put a stay on the executive order. Clearly unconstitutional. Those of you who know the constitutional provisions on this know that there are that essentially elections in the United States are run by the states. Congress does have the power to pass certain laws that govern elections generally. The president has absolutely no role whatsoever in elections in the United States. It was pretty cut and dried. An appellate court just in the last couple of weeks upheld that district court decision to invalidate and put a stay on the executive order. And the Trump administration just in the last few days actually went in and filed an emergency motion with the Supreme Court in order to overturn that. Look, and anyone who follows the court knows that we've got 6 pretty diehard conservatives and Trumpers on the court, and only three liberals. But as you may also be aware, there was a case deciding whether or not Mississippi could count mail-in ballots that were postmarked prior to Election Day, but came in after Election Day, and the Supreme Court, on a 5-4 decision, upheld Mississippi's right to do that. This was a really, really important case, and it demonstrates that there are a couple of those 6 conservatives who are not so crazy that they're willing to side with reason and actually read the Constitution when they make these decisions. So while you never know what's going to happen, we feel pretty good, and the idea idea that they would allow this executive order to go back into effect is, I think, unlikely, and it would be pretty frightening, and it would cause quite a bit of chaos. But we're pretty confident that the court will not do anything with this particular repeal. In any case, however, and this is the last thing I'll say, Sarah, and then up to you whether I take any questions or do anything else. This is the last thing I want to say. Over the last couple of years, we have become, of course, very cognizant of the Trump administration sending DOJ lawyers out to observe various places, not just in California, but also in other kind of blue states around the country. We've been very careful about making sure that we track them. I would say, for the most part, that while it could seem intimidating to have DOJ lawyers coming out to these locations, for the most part, here in California, our elections are run extremely professionally. And for the most part, we really haven't seen any significant problems with that. We're going to continue to be quite vigilant about that and ensure that there's no interference with our elections. So that's one aspect. And then the final thing I want to talk about is the Postal Service. And that is that regardless of the fact that these executive orders have been stayed, we're still very concerned about the Postal Service generally delivering mail ballots on time or delivering them at all. I mean, we really do think this is one of the main ways that the Trump administration can interfere with the elections. So our messaging has kind of shifted a little bit, and I want all of you to be aware of this. It used to be our focus was on when you got a mail ballot, because every registered voter in California gets a ballot in the mail. In terms of returning those ballots, we encourage people to drop them in the mail. There's no need for a stamp or anything like that. We've adjusted our messaging a little bit. I would say the first two priorities would be either find a local the closest vote center or polling location or registrar's office to where you are or where you work. You can drop a completed vote by mail ballot at any voting location in the entire state of California, and it will be forwarded to your home county and it will be counted. Now, you can't vote outside your county, but you can drop off a completed ballot outside your county, and that is an important distinction. If you can't do that, then use a drop box. There are drop boxes everywhere in California. And then if you can't find a drop box or you can't find a polling location, then of course, we would rather you put something in the mail than not vote at all. We do encourage people to try to, if they're going to use the Postal Service, do it by the Thursday or at the latest by the Friday before the election. Now, California law says that as long as it is postmarked and the envelope is dated by Election Day and it arrives at the registrar within 7 calendar days, that is the following Tuesday after the election, that it will be counted. But the Postal Service now is so inconsistent and slow, and we are afraid of funny business that might happen at the last second. So it is really best policy to either vote early if you're going to vote by mail, or just drop your completed ballot either at a voting location or at a drop box. And with that, I will pause and see if there's anything else you need from me.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I think what we need is information about how to get in touch with the voter protection team, but I'm not sure that it's up and running yet. So if we've managed to convince anyone to join Mr. King's team, get in touch with me and I'll be able to put you in touch with him and Emma.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll get that to you, Sarah, and you can send that out to your list.
That's great. Thank you so much for being here. I think we don't really have time for questions, but I'm sure that if anyone has a burning question, I'm also very happy to get you in touch with Mr. Coby.
Well, you know what? Before I sign off, is the chat live? Yeah, I see that
Yeah,
it is.
it is. Yep.
I'll put my email address in the chat, and feel free to contact me, and I'll definitely try to help you out.
That's perfect. Thank you very, very much. And with that, we complete our program for today, which I really appreciate. I hope that was of some interest to have, to hear from some people about their perspectives on where our dangers lie and what it is that we need to do. I mean, I think we all know, but it's helpful to hear it from others. So we have a few minutes to race through the last of our regular business meeting. It's summer. A lot of people are on the beach, I think. So not our full executive committee or steering committee is here, but we'd be happy to hear from some reports. Our Southern Vice Chair, Wade Kyle is here. Do you have anything to share with the caucus?
All right, don't have a whole lot. I can keep it super duper short. Just report from the Southern California. People had a lot of questions about Proposition 3, Proposition 40, and just, CTA supports Proposition 3, which is the permanent extension of our normal Proposition 98, actually Proposition 55. And as a regular person on an everyday basis, I say if we can get 2 taxes passed on this next November ballot, it'd be great. If we cannot, just hopefully we can get Proposition 3 passed. I think there's a lot of money out there that can be taxed and brought into education.
Well, great. And that's part of the reason we're racing is so that we can get to the part of our agenda that hears from propositions so we can think hard about them. Thanks for giving us the information with your personal hat on. Our Secretary, Abba Nigisa, I'm not sure if you have anything to report on. I don't see Abba, but I know she's in here. She's probably busy writing away in the background, or maybe she had to drop off. Oh, there she is. Oh, I just lost. Hi, Abba. Do you have any? Nope, she's saying no. Okay, that's fine. She is typing away in the background. Our treasurer, Tiffany Sickler, is not here tonight. In our, I can share, let me share again the agenda. Let me share again the agenda and you can see, hopefully it's in the chat if you want to take your own copy of this, but our finances are pretty okay for right now. This is in part due to the membership pins that people have been so kindly purchasing to cover our membership fee for all. And and we do still have a few pins left. If anyone is interested in joining the caucus at a $25 level, that nets you a pin, which you can see I'm wearing one of somewhere. Here it is. Probably shouldn't put my hands in the way. You can see it on my here. Those pins are not being sold, but they are a thank you gift for helping to support our membership drive. We have 149 regular members, and you can see even 6 lifetime members for which we're most grateful, and all the rest, everyone who gives above and beyond, and everyone who needs to be part of the group. So many thanks for that. I guess my report is that, we keep trying to do programs that are of interest and use to the membership. I hope this program was of interest. I know we have long been wanting to do one on maternal and infant health. We have a conversation series that I think was quite successful, and we'd like to continue conversations with party leaders. I guess I need to hurry it up too because time is coming along. You can find these in the agenda, and I will not take up more of our time. Do we have steering committee members here with a report? Janice is here. She might have a word to say. And I think Corrine is here. Raise your hand. If I see Corrine raising her hand, do you have a report to make, Corrine? She says no. I know our communications team, Michael Lee, is here, and he mentioned that he has some words to share with us. Hi, Michael.
Oh, yeah. Hi, everyone. I thought I saw Nelson, but otherwise, just reminding everyone we are active on social media, so please follow our Instagram and Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And those are in the chat, and we do have a Facebook group that old people like me find comfortable to go to. And I think Michael's been doing our Instagram account, which is great. And we'd love to get more enthusiasm around it. I think it's hard in the summer. I think everyone's baked and people are exhausted by what's going on. Who knows? But we'd love to sort of try and everyone lift each other up. Is there anyone else from our steering committee I'm missing who might have a report they wish to share? Or anyone from the membership who would like to share something that's happening in their neck of the woods, an event or a concern? Raise your hand. We will entertain that. Not seeing it. And so that's wonderful. So we have, or I don't know if it's wonderful. We would be extremely happy to hear from you if you have something to share. Raise your hand. Mercury Nunez, please, let's hear it. Oop, hand went down. Maybe it went up accidentally.
Hi, everybody. No, sorry. Can you hear me, Sarah?
Yep, can hear you.
Yes, I'm sorry. My camera's not working. Hi, everybody. My name's Mary Curry Nunez. I'm a delegate in San Jose and also a candidate for school board. I just wanted to make sure folks are continuing to spread the word about the child savings account programs that we have here in California, like CalKids. Mainly because every day I continue to meet people, 8th grade middle teachers, school principals, parents who still are not aware of it. And so I'm uploading to the chat the flyer that the California Treasurer's Office made that specifically lays out CalKids, as well as the brand new program, the Hope Chest account, which is specifically for foster youth and children who lost their parents during the pandemic. And then I am hosting free webinars to just make sure folks are aware of these programs tomorrow and August 13th for folks who might want to just catch up on these available programs before the beginning of the academic year. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, that's great. And I wonder if, I don't know if you find our Facebook group, or maybe you can share some of that notification so that you can help promote that information. Maybe you can share it with Michael, and we can, do what we need to do, like it on Instagram or whatever. Apologies for being leaden about this, but those sound like important programs, and we'd be very happy to share out.
I'll be happy to share them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Chris Stampolis, am I saying your name correctly?
Yeah, that's perfect, Sarah. Thanks. I'm wondering, since we have two Democrats who made the runoff for insurance commissioner, assuming that it's not only going to end up being one of them who somehow gets endorsed this weekend, which I guess is possible, that if it does turn out that it is two, perhaps the Children's Caucus may want to do some kind of a forum to give them an opportunity to discuss how they will respond to the priority issues of this caucus.
That's a great idea. And in fact, they're both scheduled to come on later. So our second half of the show, after we gavel this closed, we will have an open floor for campaigns and candidates. Mercury, any candidates here can introduce themselves that way. But in fact, one of our insurance commissioner candidates just entered the room. So that's a great idea. Thank you. Sarah Bradshaw. Hi.
Hey there.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for all you do. I just am coming from a meeting with Assembly Member Celeste Rodriguez, talking about her assembly bill that gave parents it allowed for parents to create guardianships for their children in case they are dragged off by immigration or have other health issues that come in front of them. So I just want to make folks aware of that. It's, some places are not talking about it as widely, but it's really important part of parents' emergency kits. So I just want to raise that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Maybe we should do a program on immigration safety too. Thank you so much. And Michele Krug, our regional director from the place that our executive board is meeting, has her hand up. I think you can speak now.
You hear me?
Yeah, I think you're on
Can you
mute.
hear
Go
me?
ahead. Yep, we can hear you. Yep.
Thanks. That's what I couldn't tell. I'm so Michele, yes, I am a Region 22 director. You're coming to my town later this week, and I've been involved. We have a pretty strong coalition of about 35 organizations hosting us out of San Diego. Since last September, in August, our Labor Council put on a nonviolence training, and after that, people wanted to do more. So if you happen to be in town on Thursdays, any Thursday from 10:30 to 12, at the downtown courthouse, 880 Front Street, we have a rally. And on Sunday, when you're leaving the e-board, if you happen to have a little bit of time, the Otay Detention Center, which was recently sold from CoreCivic to the US government, to Homeland Security, along with California City. Those detention centers are now owned by the federal government, which makes monitoring, which we've been doing on healthcare, much more difficult. But be that as it may, every Sunday we're out there from 1:30 to 3:30 at the Otay Detention Center. So just mentioning it, if people happen to have a little bit of time to spend before they start their drive home. Thanks.
Thank you. And hopefully we'll get through our Sunday floor session because all of our delegates will be so well versed in the propositions, which is coming up next. Thank you, Michele. Adam.
Yeah, I imagine what I'm going to say is make you uncomfortable because I know you, but I wanted to take a second and thank you for all the stuff that you do. I know I specifically kind of work with you a lot on the platform committee, and I know you were very involved with all the changes that were happening, the major changes to the platform. You were right there on top of it. You were making sure that the children's plank at least had all the major things it needed to have. You were asking everybody else to please pay attention, and then they finally did. But like, thank you for that. Thank you for doing the ledge advocacy stuff. I know it was, we're pushing forward, trying to, Assemblymember Mark Gonzalez's bill about trying to make sure that we're fighting back against Trump's cuts to LGBTQ emergency services for mental health. We were fighting for, when you're talking about housing and homelessness, which is very important, that you're talking about youth housing and homelessness as well, specifically looking at that. I know it's kind of wrapped into Prop 1, not exactly what Senator Mangivar was pushing for, but it was, at least it was part of it there. So thank you very much, Sarah, for all your work on that.
Thank you. I thought you were going to say something about the reorganization, which we may be on different sides of a divide about.
I'm not going to bring that up.
I didn't know it's all about that. Thank you. That's very kind. Lots of nice hearts. I appreciate from everybody. Anybody else have a word or two to say? And then we will close the meeting and move on to our propositions part. But first, is there anyone that we would like to adjourn in memory of? And seeing nobody and hearing no hands, that's good news. No news is good news with regard to that. So we will close the meeting at 8:36 and move on to formally close it and move on now, as you can see in the agenda, to the post-meeting forum about propositions, which are so important. And I keep getting emails from people saying, we need to be talking about this. Let's talk about it more. So let's talk about it here. The agenda, I've tried to make very helpful towards that goal. There are a lot of links in here. I've gotten Ballotpedia links for all 14 of the amendments. There are 14 of propositions. There are 14 of them. In my opinion, it turns out this is actually not an unmanageable task. You can actually get your hand, in my experience, you can get your hands around this really pretty quickly. So you'll also find, and hopefully I'm still sharing the screen, you can see that I've used the regional director's helpful setup of categories for these budgets, for these propositions: budgets, taxes, funding, election reform, housing, and land use. I think that's helpful to understand what's in front of you and get less intimidated by it. There are two wonderful documents by Caucus our communications guy, Michael Lee Chang. Here it's linked, and also Alfred Tu. And I think I have, first pages of those. Those are very helpful too. So I hope you will take this bull by the horn and take your job as citizen and delegate to the party seriously and really think about these hard. The regional directors did a forum this weekend that is on their YouTube page, which is YouTube/@regional directors. And we will stick this forum up on our page too. So even though it looks like some people have gone on to their dinner, this will be here to be reviewed by delegates, and I hope we will all do that. So my plan, also linked here, is we hope that all campaigns and candidates will sort of address their remarks in some sense to children's issues. That's what animates our members. It is what should animate all members, in my humble opinion. All politics is piloted on kids. So, but we did make an attempt, a stab that you can see here, to define our children's issues at the moment, and please feel free to take a look at that document. So the plan here right now is to spend around 5 minutes, if necessary, on all of the on all of the propositions that somebody has asked to speak about. That's not all of the propositions, but I have listed them all here, even if there's nobody on the docket. And I've invited the people who've asked this to send along their information too, and you can find links here in the agenda to, fact sheets, flyers, website, and facts. And I hope you will utilize this as a tool. We're requesting there. I don't believe there's any proposition with a pro and con who have asked to speak, though there may be people who feel differently in the audience. So the plan is that our presenters take a minute to say a word about what the proposition is, and then another minute and a half, if necessary, about where their position is. Those are, going to blend together, of course, but if you can try and be a little bit objective, that just explains it first, that's great, and then why it is that we need to be on your position. That's the plan, and if there are any questions from the membership, that'll be also terrific, because that's actually what brings out what's tricky, if there's things that are tricky, and what it is we need to think about. And the big goal here is not to be gobsmacked by something on the floor on Sunday. So the big goal here is to get to Michele's Otay Mesa, demonstration or whatever it is, to be able to show up there. So we don't want to spend hours on the floor in San Diego on Sunday morning. So we need to come prepared. Our first up, I tried to arrange these in order of, children's issues and most important. So the first up is Proposition 3, from budgets and taxes to renew the state income tax increase for education funding. Our CTA fellow, Shay Franco Clausen, may not be here, but I think Wade said he was ready to step in for her. Is that right, Wade?
That is correct.
Awesome.
Good afternoon.
Please take it away. And I will put 2.5 minutes up on the timer just to help you pace yourself, if that's okay, okay, great. Sounds good.
Perfect. Thank you very much, everyone. My name is Wade Kyle. I am a 26-year teacher in the city of Los Angeles, United Teachers of Los Angeles. I'm also CTA member and part of the CTA political committee. Basically, Proposition 3 is a permanent extension of a proposition we already pay for. It was set to sunset in 2031. And so basically, we believe every child should have quality education. They should not be forced to choose between quality healthcare and quality education. Quality education, number one, 24/7 as an educator. The Proposition 3 goes through what's called the General Fund, and the General Fund was established in 1998. California voters decided that about 40% of the General Fund goes to guaranteed goes to education. And so that's why it's super important this November to vote yes on Proposition 3. This puts into the California Constitution to make it permanent that 40% of that money coming through the general fund goes to public education. Super important and needed in the state of California because, as we know from the state, and we kind of had a discussion about this the other night with another caucus, funding is our number one issue, believe it or not. The other problem is with Trump kind of taking apart the national Department of Education. IDEA is never fully funded through the states in general, including California. And that totally impacts special education. That's when you intentionally defund special education, you also defund general education because then the funds coming from that are being taken out of special ed are now coming out of general ed because we don't have enough money. And so we found more people who in special ed are now being pushed into general ed, making it harder for general ed teachers who don't have the funding. We don't have the state funding, we don't have the national funding, which is why it's super important to make sure that we get the permanent extension of the funding Californians have already voted for. It's something we are already have in place. It's taxing our most rich people for the general fund for public education. That's basically in a nutshell what Proposition 3. Again, as an individual, I'm all supportive of Proposition 3, yes, and Proposition 40, yes. But this is just about Proposition 3. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Very, very clear to me. Are there any questions from anyone? Just raise your hand, or perhaps I think Corinne was going to be searching the chat if anyone had any questions. I would mention now a proposition that nobody offered to speak on. Jermaine, we'll get to you in a second. That's good. Wade just mentioned Proposition 3 and Proposition 40. I would also say to add those together and get to Proposition 43. That's another one very important to actually defeat for schools and local special issues. But we don't have anyone here speaking on that. But in the agenda is information lined up to the Regional Directors Forum, and you can hear about that here. Jermaine, please.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is there any perceived pushback for Prop 3? Like, are expecting a big push from either the Howard Jarvis Fund group or anybody else that, like, I don't know how you can say this is a bad thing for our state.
Can I speak?
Please.
I don't think there's a huge pushback, but as an individual voter, most people, when they hear about a tax and they don't know a lot about a tax, they push back with no. And so that's why it's always important to remind them this is something that's already being paid. It's not an additional. It's not something that's new. It's something that's already in place. One of the challenges becomes Proposition 40 in that there is another tax on the ballot. And so when there's too many taxes, it does confuse the voter. So you've got to be really good about education. Proposition 3, permanent and guaranteed educational funding. Proposition 40 is a yes for healthcare because we do need quality healthcare. So there's two different needs here, but sometimes people don't really hear and they get confused once they start hearing tax and tax and
right.
Tax. They start saying no, no, no. And so you just got to be real clear. Hey, this is for education funding, guaranteed. You already pay it.
Thank you.
Yeah, very clear and very important. You know, I get into this set that like I know the answer, and so you forget that others are not seeing or hearing it in the same way. So thank you for pointing out that perspective. Very good. Any other questions about Proposition 3? I wish we had a speaker on Proposition 43, but I hope you will go ahead and look into it. Thank you very much. All right. Well, next up is the billionaires tax. So Proposition 3 is known as the millionaires tax. Is that right, Wayne? I'm sorry, are you,
I'm laughing because it is confusing.
it is really confusing.
So that's why the education piece is super important.
Yep,
And
yep,
so the billionaire's tax is Proposition 40.
yep. And the millionaire's tax is Proposition 3, is that correct?
I
Or
call
the 43?
it is, but I just call it the permanent extension of Proposition 55, which is a mouthful.
Right. And maybe, and to your point, is a better way of being explanatory in like 4 words, and that's the idea.
Conflicting. You just got to move them apart a little bit so then people don't get confused.
Right. And I would say that an important thing to note about the propositions is that they're numbered in a different fashion. So there are single digit number propositions, 1 to 5, and there are double digit propositions, 37 to 44, I believe. So there's 14 total. I thought that the legislature had put the single digit numbers onto the docket, but our communications guru and maven who knows everything, Michael, tells me no, it was actually a decision of the legislature, but you can still sort of think of it in that way. Sort of what the adults in the room are asking us to think about is the single digit propositions, and then the kind of trickier ones are those double digit ones. Michele might have a question again, perhaps to Proposition 3, or was that, I don't think the hand was from before.
Bruce,
Can
can I
you,
speak to IDEA real quick?
I'm sorry, sure. What?
In the chat, someone asked about IDEA.
Oh, okay, maybe, yes, please go ahead and
it's
address
just
it.
a federal funding for special education. Back in 1975, Congress guaranteed that the national funding would be there for the state and locals to fulfill the cost of special education. They promised to spend up to 40%, and it just never happened. And as every year, as costs get more and more in special ed, and special ed is very expensive, you get less and less fulfillment for the students' individual needs.
Thank you very much. And it looks like Michele is unmuted now. Michele, did you have a question?
Yes, just a clarification. Well, 2 things. One, a clarification of what you were just saying, Sarah, is the legislature, it used to be that the last election cycle that won the single digits were something that actually went through the legislature, assembly, senate, but did not need a gubernatorial signature. But now the legislature is allowed to highlight 5, and that's what the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are. They get to pick which ones they want to highlight. But my question is just to confirm, because I believe I collected signatures for this one. Yes, it is the extension of Prop 55, but this is the one that anyone who's making 360,000 plus a year and is single, or 720,000 as a couple, this is the tax that they are paying. So it is not honestly even affecting, certainly not lower income, and certainly not what I would call middle income people. Is that accurate for Proposition 3?
That is accurate. It just retains the current tax filing that you currently are paying if you're in that bracket, which is up to 433,000 as a single, or up to 721,000 or more.
Yeah, I think it's 360,000. I'm pretty sure. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Singles, yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for clarifying. I didn't know that about. It's so interesting to know. We will move on to Proposition 40, which will encompass all these. These are all our budgets and taxes. Gabriel Montoya is here from SEIU UHW. Please take it away. I'll set 2.5 minutes on for you to talk about what the proposition is and then where your position is. Please.
All right. Good morning, Children's Caucus members. My name is Gabe Montoya, and I'm a 20-year EMT in LA County and a 16-year member of SEIU United Healthcare Workers. And I just want to share with you, Prop 40 is really to prevent the healthcare collapse that is going to happen in California if we do not backfill cuts from the big ugly bill. California, over the next 10 years, is expected to lose about $100 billion in Medicaid funding. because of the bill that President Trump signed into law last July. And so what that means is about 26 to 30 billion dollars a year in Medicaid funding will be lost to the state. And so what are the implications of that? What that means is that hospitals will certainly close, especially rural areas will see the hardest hits because a lot of their residents depend on Medicaid in order to get health care. What we will see is the defunding of vital programs like IHHS, where in-home health services are very important for many of the parents who have to stay home and take care of their children and get paid for it. It will have impacts on independent education plans that are funded by Medicaid dollars. It will have implications for folks who are in need of skilled nursing facilities like our veterans who utilize them every single year, and Medicaid pays for the housing on that. So what this is, it's a 5% emergency tax on the 218 billionaires in California, their total wealth, not income, because these people have become professionals at avoiding income tax. This will impact their entire total wealth. And let me just say this, that they could afford to buy companies like X in order using their stock market gains, and they can afford to pay taxes on that so that the working class people of California can continue to have health care. I just want to say that SEIU-HW does continue to support Prop 3 because we believe, just like Wade said, that both funding mechanisms are necessary in order to make sure that these two public programs, Medicaid and public education, are fully funded. HR 1 does not affect general funds because it is actually a completely walled off fund where those $100 billion that it's expecting to generate will go directly into a fund that is meant to backfill cuts from HR 1. We do not believe that these two propositions, Prop 3 and Prop 40, conflict with one another because what they do is they open up the possibility to make sure that schools stay open, that programs remain in place, and 145,000 healthcare workers and their patients do not lose access to jobs in healthcare. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for putting this together, by the way.
Oh, sure, absolutely. And we don't have to be, to the money on the time. We're sort of off the clock now. Does anyone have questions about the billionaire tax or the millionaire tax or any of these budget and taxes propositions? I think there was maybe, and you can submit questions in the chat, but it'd be awesome if you could just raise your hand. Anybody have any more questions? Yes, for us, please.
Yes, hi. This is for us. I just had a question about the Prop 40. It mentioned that what was it? Do you think that if this passes, then there'll be less pressure to take funding away from schools to help supplement because it says that it's 90% tax revenue for healthcare, 10% for food assistance and education-related programs. So you
Yes.
think that with this passing, that it would alleviate pressure to take funding away from those programs?
Well, what it would definitely do is alleviate pressure from the state legislature to use general funds to backfill some of the programs that are vital to California families, right? So what Prop 40 does is it is specifically earmarked funding that this tax will generate will specifically go to backfilling cuts from HR 1. So the legislature wouldn't be able to use it or divert it to other programs, but at the same time, it would definitely give the legislature the ability to allocate general funds to programs that maybe are not, that have also been cut by HR 1 but aren't covered by Prop 40. However, just to make sure, Prop 40 was written to ensure that the money is going to backfill the cuts. And we're looking at between 26 to 30 billion dollars a year is what these cuts will cost California. And I know folks on this call have been paying attention. California today had to close a $36 billion gap in June, right? And so that tells us the legislature has no other place to get this funding from. And so really Prop 40 is the only source of money that we'll have to backfill Medicaid funding that is so vital to our students and families across California.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
it's an answer. And Michele, do you have a question as well?
I do. And Gabriel, I'm going to apologize in advance because I know this
Yes.
is going to muddy the water. But uh, your opposition of voting yes. That I collected signatures for that with Leila Cater in San Diego. But I'm wanting to understand 41 and 42 because I do understand, and correct me, that even if 40 passes, that if 41 or 42 gets more votes than 40, that they are going to be the ones that go into effect and not 40. So if you could just help me to at least understand the bad things about 41 and 42, I'd really appreciate that.
So 41 and 42 are actually Trojan horses written by the billionaires who are trying to protect themselves from contributing their fair share to the state. And so they're basically Trojan horses in that they really appeal to kind of the sentiment of the voting populace right now who is really concerned about how money is being spent by both the federal and state governments, right? And so there's a couple of things. 41 really adds additional auditing, which really isn't necessary to state programs because we already have a very extensive auditing program in the state for that. But the crux of the 41 is not just about auditing taxes that have been passed by Californians and auditing taxes that are going to be passed by California. What it is it's really written in order to do just what you talked about, which is to undermine Prop 40. Prop 42 kind of works along the same way, except what it would do, it was go even further than Prop 41. It would actually make it harder for not only the state to pass wealth taxes, but will make it harder for local municipalities to pass wealth taxes, which could affect public programs, right? Like public safety, fire safety, even some of the education programs that some cities fund outside of schools could be affected if they're not able to actually levy taxes on the wealthy. So 41 and 42 are both Trojan horses that are set up to make the public feel like, oh, I'm protecting my retirement, when in fact all it does is to protect the billions that these billionaires are really hoarding in order to keep us from fully funding Medicaid and education in the state.
But what exactly does 42?
Okay, so 42, basically, besides directly contradicting 41 and being able to enact new taxes, is it would prohibit the state from enacting and creating or imposing or authorizing collection of new taxes on personal property beginning January 1st, 2026. Covered assets would include pensions, 401ks, IRAs, mutual funds, business interests, financial investments accounts, digital assets, intellectual property, and other personal property, whether held directly or indirectly by someone. It would also prohibit the state from imposing new taxes retroactively. That is taxes that apply to like past conduct, activities, residency status that occurred before the tax took effect. And the measure actually contains language stating that if it conflicts with another initiative on the same ballot, which it does, that would allow new taxes on retirement savings, personal assets, and retroactive taxes, specifically Prop 40. The measure receiving more votes would prevail. And so even if Prop 40 passes, but Prop 42 happens to get more votes than Prop 40, it would still cancel out Prop 40. And there is a belief that it could actually also affect Prop 3, which would be considered an additional new tax on millionaires. So really, we think everybody should vote no on 42, regardless of where you stand on Prop 3 or Prop 40, to be honest.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, let me just check in. I think this is a very important conversation, but I'm concerned about the time. I would like to let it go as we need. If you are a speaker here and have a time constraint or unhappy with how we've fallen off the schedule a little, please, text me in the chat or something so that I can put you ahead or do whatever we can to make you happy and comfortable. But this is really helpful, Mr. Montoya. I'd love to hear David Frank's question. And again, if you're having problem with the timeline, just text me privately. Thanks.
Thank you. So it turns out that the question I had was also the same question Lara mentioned in the chat. And I see pretty comprehensive answers from Paul and to a lesser extent, Wade. And I just want you to know, like I have a radio show and I do, I do a monthly show, I do a weekly show. And a lot of people think that this is basically some infighting that, for lack of a better phrase, dilutes the message that there's this infighting between teachers and healthcare unions, and that's it's a real turnoff to people, and it's confusing, and they might just consider voting no on both. So I don't know. I guess my real question is to Wade, to just kind of give you more than just a sentence or two to say, why introduce the confusion?
There is no introduction of confusion. Proposition 3 supports education very firmly, and it's the guarantee of funding.
So sorry to interrupt you. I don't mean confusion about what they are. I mean confusion about, say, like dedicated money exclusively for healthcare. Why should educators consider that a conflict to education? Why does it take away from education when it's solely dedicated for healthcare? That's really what people are asking in our community.
The confusion in that piece comes actually in the title. And the title says state-funded education. And if they had just ended it with state-funded healthcare, there wouldn't be a lot of confusion. It's when you jump into the other category of education and the timing just isn't so strong for education when it only looks at a recommendation for education. And that's where the confusion comes in. I agree, we need to tax billionaires. There's no question about that. There's no question about quality health care that is needed. But Proposition 40 doesn't go into enough depth to support education with just a recommendation and by going around the general fund. That is a problem. But we have Proposition 3 to alleviate that problem. And so there's no real confusion and there's no real debate, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can understand what your opinion is, and I don't mean to be confrontational, but I'm being honest that many people think that this is CTA saying, if I'm not getting my 40%, I don't want to have a bailout mechanism for healthcare. So I don't think you address that.
I was just speaking that I would assume as CTA goes, they would like more than just a recommendation for funding going to public education. You can go through the general funding and easily get a guarantee.
Can I add as a non-expert that my
Thank
understanding
you.
is that for Prop 40, the billionaire tax is a one-time thing. So that is that is actually, the way I see it, is an explicit effort not to get in the way of Prop 98 and the distribution that we've taken a lot of trouble to make sure that our legislators with sticky fingers don't take away from these critical education dollars. It's always easy to take first from the kids. So my understanding is that actually Prop 40 being a one-time tax is a good thing. That is actually helping secure this structural setup of long time. Does that address that at all, Mr. Frank?
No, but that's okay. Yeah, I mean, to me, like on its face, it just seems like inside baseball. And I don't really, trust me, I want to support them both. And I want to try to be able to explain to people in my community why they should support them both. But I am kind of at a loss for words when I try to explain why Prop 40 is not being supported fully. So I appreciate the back and forth.
I mean, just so we're clear on our side, Prop 40, which is supported by SCA United Healthcare Workers, UHW does fully support Prop 3. We think both propositions are important. We don't think that they compete with each other. We also continue to support the Prop 98 mechanism that directs 40% of general funds towards education. I would argue that the largest really wall that Prop 98 hits is actually the legislature itself, who continuously decides to override Prop 98 every single budget. And instead, we should really be pointing our issues at the legislature for not fully funding Prop 98 in the general budget. But for the intent of Prop 40 is to really just backfill those funds that are going to be lost due to HR1 in hopes that between now and the next 5 years, the people on this call will help fight to elect a Democratic Congress and a Democratic president who can claw back the irresponsible cuts of the Trump administration.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you both.
I'll suggest that we move on, but we should talk for hours more. Mr. Frank, maybe you can I can help you get these people in touch for your podcast or whatever goes on. You should talk for hours more. Definitely. So next up are a couple of funding propositions. Proposition 38 on immunology research bond and Proposition 44 on clinic funding. I don't think, I did get a note. Would appreciate going sooner. All right. So, but Adam is up next. So, that's one note I got. Remember, everybody, you can contact me in the background if you need to put some kids to bed or whatever. Proposition 38, the immunology research bond, we would like to hear about that from Adam Seiden. And I'll put 2.5 minutes on the timer, please. Tell us what the bill is about and then why your position is as it is.
Yeah, you could probably unspotlight the two of them. So yes, on Proposition 38, what it is a $8.5 billion bond to fund medical research, specifically immunology medical research, to fight some of the find breakthrough cures for some of the biggest conditions that our loved ones face. It's cancer, Alzheimer's, it's heart disease, it's Parkinson's, lupus, kind of all of those things. It specifically funds the immunology research of that. What immunotherapies are is things that target the body's own immune system to help it be able to locate and notice and attack the disease on its own, as opposed to like with cancer, usually do chemotherapy and it's trying to go out and kill the cancer cells, with, of course, is very toxic, so kills everything else. This is using the body's immune system. So that's what it is. Why we should support it is obviously finding these breakthrough cures is very important. It helps us fight back against Trump's cuts to medical research. He's cutting that a lot. And so this kind of says, California really should be a leader in this. We need to make sure that there's the funding for us to lead the way on this. It also helps fight back against Trump's cuts to universities. The funding on this is very tied in with the University of California system, where much of it goes through, half of it goes specifically through an institute associated with University of California. The other part can only go to either universities or nonprofit research institutions. Can't go to anything for profit. It also, by the way, has a mechanism where the 10% would go back to help pay off the cost of the bond. So it's endorsed by patient advocates like City of Hope, the ALS Association, Parkinson's, Northern California. Also, some organizations that kind of are very much equity minded. It's End Poverty in California, Social Equity LA, the Parent Engagement Academy. It's California Young Democrats. We have a number of, like probably 36 Democratic leaders across the state who are endorsing it, and hope you will join us.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Seiden? Or anything in addition that buzzed you out for that you really needed to? That's my question. Is there anything else you need to say?
I think I got it all in there. I appreciate it.
Okay, that's great. No questions here. Maybe they will come up with our second funding proposition of Proposition 44 in contrast.
Very different things, so I don't think it's anything at all related. But
yeah, I agree. Sorry about that, but they are funding issues. So
I can speak on 44 if you want to.
I'm sorry?
I can speak on Pro 44 if you need someone to.
Okay. We have a con speaker who has asked to be on the agenda, and then maybe you can levy some good questions at him.
I'm going to go because this has nothing to do with 38, so I'm going to go ahead and drop off. So
okay, that's awesome. Thank you very, very much. Is Jason Van Dyke here? We'd like to hear
I
from
am,
you
yeah.
if that's okay.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure. I'll spotlight you once I find you. There you go. Please tell us about Proposition 44 and clinic funding.
Yeah, so Prop 44 is uh, in inputs spending requirements on federally qualified health centers. So I'm here to speak to oppose Prop 44. My name is Jason Van Dyke. Been a physical therapist for 26 years. I lead the Pediatric Development Services Department at Family Health Centers of San Diego, a large federally qualified health center. Our team provides comprehensive services to low-income children at clinics throughout San Diego County, including speech, occupational, and physical therapy. We also provide audiology, early intervention services, and behavioral health. I'm here today to discuss Prop 44 and how the misleading measure would have devastating consequences for California's most vulnerable patients, including children. The poorly written measure excludes funding for critical patient care and staff services, including medical technology, healthcare enrollment navigators, translation services, transportation, even mammogram and x-ray machines. Children across California rely on community clinics and school-based clinics and health centers for preventative care and developmental services like my team provides. Prop 44 would cut 1.7 billion from community health centers and clinics in its first year, and would eliminate funding for hundreds of school-based health clinics that serve tens of thousands of California students. This could force many clinics to cut services and or even close, making it actually harder for children to get care and stay healthy. Prop 44 is opposed by the American Academy of Pediatrics, California Children's Health Association, California Nurses Organization, California School-Based Health Alliance, and California Teachers Association. So I urge you to please vote for the party to oppose Prop 44.
Thank you very much. We may have questions, but let's let Mr. Montoya have a minute and a half to give an opposing position.
So again, UHW represents 120,000 healthcare workers across the state, including workers in some community clinics like Planned Parenthood. And it's actually the frontline workers who support Prop 44 because they actually agree that we need to direct 90% of funding that community clinics receive to frontline care. We don't believe it's irrational to demand that clinics actually direct the majority of their funding to frontline care. And frontline care can cover staffing, which we know that community clinics suffer from extreme understaffing. It could mean investing in equipment that works in favor of taking care of patients. It could mean anything from ensuring that like licensed medical social workers are not inundated with 187 cases, which I've actually met a clinical worker who's actually had spoken to us about that. It also means that clinics are kept clean and tidy, right, for our patients, and patients aren't sitting in waiting rooms for 2 to 3 hours waiting to be seen. It's not irrational to ask that we direct 90% of funding to frontline care and not to high-paid CEOs and executives and board members of community clinics. It also does not take away any funding from clinics. In fact, there is a fine that they would pay if they're non-compliance with the 90% funding, but that's actually held in a 5-year escrow that could be actually diverted back to the community clinic should they actually meet the criteria of directing 90% of their funding to their patient care, which is the most important part of a community clinic.
Thank you. Does anyone have any question between these warring factions? I mean, I hear one saying it won't take money from the clinic, and then another saying it will take money from the clinic. So I don't think it's a he said, she said setup, but it sounds that way superficially. Mr. Van Dyke, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, specifically, Gabriel's mentioning CEO pay. The bill has nothing to do with CEO pay. I think that the problem with the bill is that it's written very poorly and does not have a clear distinction of what mission spend 90% mission spend means, right? And I think the big issue and concern that we have is that it won't provide for transportation services for patients, translation services for patients, and amongst a number of other things, medical records, some of the social services and other things that we do would be cut and have difficulty funding, may not go towards mission spend. I think that's the crux of the bill is that it's just, very, very poorly written and doesn't have any clear direction on the funding and what happens with that.
Thank you. I have concerns with the sort of extracurricular big pieces of luggage. So it's very hard to be flexible and do the job of budgeting and administering when it's
Absolutely.
been legislatively set.
Yeah, I mean, we're strongly regulated by the federal and state governments. Our budgets are reviewed and analyzed. We have all kinds of auditing that we go through already, and the restrictions that this would place on clinics, in all honesty, multiple clinics will close. The Berkeley Research Group did a study that noted it would cut 1.7 billion in the first year alone from community health clinics, community health centers and clinics. A lot of clinics are running at very small profit margins, and Gabriel indicates that this will affect frontline workers and things like that. We're to be competitive in the healthcare market, we need to pay our frontline healthcare workers and our front staff at market rates, and we do that, and that's how we stay in business, and that's how we continue to work. So it's just that's all I can say there.
Thank you. The campaign, Mr. Van Dyke has given a lot of information in the agenda, which can help people to look at it. And I invite Mr. Montoya to send information if he'd like. We'll put it up in the agenda as a tool for people. If there aren't any more questions, we'll move on because it's getting late at night. But I don't want to squelch important conversation. So raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll get more information out to people. Thank you both for being here. Thank you, Mr. Van Dyke. Thank you for hopping in, Mr. Montoya.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yeah, appreciate it. And thank you to Trent, who is long suffering and been waiting for a long time. I'm sorry, we're behind the curve. He has information about Proposition 4, the public campaign financing bill.
Yes, hello everybody. Thank you very much, Sarah. I think we all understand how much of a problem it is that corporations and billionaires are spending such outrageous amounts of money electing and influencing candidates who gets elected. It's obviously messing the whole country up, but it also has huge problems here in California, as we can all tell. The best solution, a proven solution, is public financing of campaigns to level the playing field, so that qualified candidates can get enough public funds to. I just see the thumb of Senator Ben Allen popping up, who is one of the joint authors of this bill. Thank you, Senator Allen. To level the playing field so candidates can compete against billionaires. We've seen that it actually works. Most recently in New York, Zoran Mamdani was able to get enough funds to win despite tens of millions of dollars being spent against him by super PACs. But it's also worked in Los Angeles and San Francisco and other places across the country. The problem is that public financing is banned everywhere in California, except for charter cities. We need to repeal that ban. The only way to do that is to with this ballot measure. It was put on the ballot by SB 42, authored by Senator Tom Umberg, Senator Ben Allen, Sabrina Cervantes, and Assemblymember Alex Lee. It had the support of the Democratic Party. The bill had also the support of the California Labor Federation. We're optimistic that both will endorse it again, as well as current support by California Nurses Association, California Clean Money Campaign, League of Women Voters, Common Cause, Courage California, Indivisible, and a long list of groups. It repeals the ban. It puts into place modest safeguards, like saying that candidates must abide by expenditure limits and meet strict criteria to qualify. It prohibits public funding from using funds earmarked for education, transportation, or public safety. So it has a lot of safeguards in it. It doesn't actually institute any public financing, but by repealing this ban, any jurisdiction, any community in the state, including the state itself, can pass public financing of campaigns. This is going to be a low budget campaign that's going to be led by getting the word out by as many activists as possible. We're going to be having campaign kickoffs in different areas across the state. And as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to paste in there place where hopefully that you guys yourselves can endorse right now on our website, and say if you'd like to be get involved in our speakers program or help with planning committees, etc. But we need to get big money out of politics. This is the start to doing it right here in California this November with Proposition 4.
Awesome. Thank you. Chris Stampolis.
Yeah. Hey, brother Trent, it's Chris.
Hey, Chris. Good to see you again.
Hey, good to see you, man. Hey, will this cover education boards, school boards, college boards as well if it passes?
Yes, it repeals the ban for everything in California. Now, it's not going to put into place any public financing systems, but yes, it removes the ban for everything. California is the only state in the whole country that has any of these kinds of bans. It's just ridiculous that we have this ban. It's put in place by 1988 by corporate special interests who didn't want the public financing campaigns. So just repeal that ban, and then we can go step by step in communities that want it, and the state, of course, if it wants it. And we look forward to working with the party and everybody else to level the playing field everywhere once we get this ban repealed.
And let's follow-up question is do you know who has signed the ballot argument opposed?
Yes, the signers of the ballot argument opposed, and I almost hate to say this because I know it's going to make all of you nervous about it. It's the California Taxpayers Association and Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. They're the main signers, plus a couple of former FPPC commissioners. So please don't hold that against the ballot measure. It was actually signed by League of Women Voters, California Nurses Association, Senator Tom Umberg, Consumer Watchdog, and a couple others. So,
all right. Good to hear from you, man. I'll be in touch. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a question from Mumtaza.
Yeah, I just wanted to note, I mean, given that we will have to do local pushes for public financing in the future, I think it's a good time to build a local network to support this proposition that can then work in 2 years to get local ballot propositions to get public financing.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. That's why we have a speakers program to try to speak to every Democratic club in the state if we can. If you guys are part of the Democratic clubs or others that would like a proposition for a speaker, I just put the endorsement link on our website. Please endorse it as a delegate or whatever you are. Mark down if you have if you're part of a club that you would potentially like a speaker, let us know and help us with these local campaign kickoffs, because you're right. We want to start we're using this as an organizing opportunity to make sure everybody in local communities know why public financing campaigns will level the playing field and get those activists ready to make the push after we get the ban repealed.
Yeah, that's a great point. Start now and keep going. Anybody else have questions? To me, it feels a complete no-brainer, but as always, the passage is not a no-brainer. So thank you for all the work you do, Trent. You're an amazing gift to California.
Thank you. And I'd just like to say one thing. Sarah deserves a lot of kudos, as did all the rest of the caucus chairs who helped us get this bill, SB 42, through the legislature last year. It was a real sign of the caucus's working together with the good government groups to encourage the legislature to do the right thing, which they did successfully. And Sarah was actually a very important leader working with me on that. So thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. And absolutely, all of us are caucus members. This is what caucuses, when they band together, can do. So we are not a huge group of people, though we're larger than showed up tonight. Encourage your favorite caucus. This may not be your favorite caucus. Encourage them, the chairs, to work together, because what we were able to accomplish with this bill was an eye opener for me. And all of you union people are like, yes, duh, solidarity works. But it can
It worked.
it worked. It can be hard to accomplish it. Every caucus member should work together. We're having a joint caucus social in San Diego, and encourage cross-linking. This is the grassroots of the party, the grassroots of the grass tops. We can do a lot when we work together. So sorry, soapboxing here, but thank you. Thank you, Trent. Any more questions? I don't see any. We'll move to our last Proposition 45, modifying environmental review, or we have Martha Krieger here from the Sierra Club, very patiently waiting. Thank you so much. Take it away. Tell us about Prop 45.
And I just wanted to say thank you so much, Sarah. And I've been with the Children's Caucus for a while, and I'm so happy to be back talking about something I care so deeply about. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about Prop 45. I'm here in opposition. My name is Martha Krieger. I'm a parent and a volunteer for Sierra Club, California. And I'm presenting to you exactly what a number of your presenters have talked about, which is a proposition that cannot be amended, cannot be changed, and will be living with the language for a very long time if it passes, which I'm hoping it won't. Proposition 45 is funded and written by corporations and the California Chamber of Commerce, including fossil fuels and big tech. That's important because the proposition itself permanently dismantles our state's strongest environmental law, the California Environmental Quality Act, clearing the way for a range of harmful projects to be built without any meaningful environmental assessment or public input. And that's one of the highlights I want to tell you. It pretty much wipes out community review, transparency, and accountability. These projects are likely to include everything from data centers to heavy industrial projects to freeway expansions and all the way to wastewater treatment plants and, aerospace, which is another word for weapons. Which brings us to another piece I really want to highlight for you. This language overwrites the legislature's protections on school siting. So a vote yes on the proposition allows these harmful facilities like, I'm sorry, Sarah, I can see you smacking your head. Okay. But it allows data centers to be built right next to K through 12 schools that are coming. Yeah. And that means because they're not telling you what's in them or any of the mitigations, the developers actually get to set what environmental reviews they are going to tell people about. That means we're exposing all our kids to hazardous pollution. And I've been working on mental health for kids and, holding them with asthma attacks since 2007. And I just don't want to do that anymore. The measure weakens review for the construction of educational facilities, overriding what I told you before the legislature had done. It exposes future generations of students to toxic soil, vapor. And I just want to remind you again, propositions cannot be amended. So we'll be living with that for a long time. The third thing I want to point out to you is Gabriel, who's with me, did a ton of work on this. It allows developers to actually sue the jurisdiction if there are any delays in the project or you've asked for mitigations based on what you know might be there. So the Nonpartisan Legislative Analyst's Office, the LAO, actually estimates that Prop 45 is going to cost local jurisdictions hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's going to come out of their general funds, which is a real problem because, as you know, and I know, a lot of those budgets, the general budgets, help pay for education and the extras for schools. It also helps pay for wildfire pieces. So the last thing I want to say besides that is 275 organizations back this, including EJ groups. We were just endorsed this morning by Act Local in LA, and I'm ready to answer any questions you have, and so is Gabriel.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on Prop 45? Which is put here as a housing and land use issue, but honestly, it's an environmental issue. It's a kids issue. Any questions here?
Come on, give me at least one.
Yeah. Raise your hands.
I waited till 9:30.
Faraz has a question. Thank you, Faraz.
Yes, good evening. My question is that well, I'm interested a lot in the topic of public transportation projects and building taller, more affordable housing, especially near transit sites. I was told that this proposition would make it easier and less expensive to build transit projects like rail and affordable housing. What do you say to those that say that there's more benefits to it rather than potential costs?
Well, I'm going to turn it over to Gabriel, but I'm going to say that most of those changes that have happened in fast tracking permitting already happened. They happened last year with the budget trailer bills. So they're like already there. You can build housing almost any place. Okay. So right now, this actually, the harmful effects of this is almost entirely on the data centers and weapons and aerospace and other stuff that's coming in. And I'm just not sure you're getting much gain for the loss, but I'm going to turn it over to Gabriel, who actually has done the deep dive.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Well, first of all, Martha's completely right. The legislature has passed 36 bills since 2002 to streamline or entirely exempt dense urban infill housing from CEQA. AB 130 passed last year, for example, entirely exempted from CEQA review any housing project in an urban census tract on 20 acres or less. Regarding transportation, the measure critically excludes high-speed rail for reasons I cannot explain, but I'm not the Cal Chamber. Regarding other forms of transportation, there are potentially ways that it might benefit public agencies, but at a cost of hundreds of millions of dollars due to the ambiguity written into the bill and as calculated by the legislative analyst's office. If you read the measure, you'll see that it contradicts itself internally, and it introduces new forms of liability to agencies by unsettling 50 years of established case law under CEQA.
Okay, so basically the answer to that argument is that even if this proposition doesn't pass, CEQA is already streamlined for affordable housing. It excludes high-speed rail. And you're saying that for transportation projects, it creates more liability. Am I understanding that right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. And additionally, it sweeps in this measure all sorts of hazardous projects like data centers, like certain industrial projects, like warehouses, like freeway expansions, and removes the voices. It silences communities and removes our ability to advocate in support of stronger mitigation measures to protect our health.
In fact, the developers can sue us for asking them to do so. So if we ask something that's going in next to a school to take care of the vapors that they're putting off, like I live near the Tesla plant and it's had the most violations of any company in the last 5 years for clean air and labor violations, I might add, which is why construction and trades is actually, state construction and trades has actually endorsed this, and so has nurses.
Endorse the opposition. I should.
Yes, sorry, endorse the opposition to this bill.
Yeah.
Endorse our coalition. Yeah,
that's right.
Let me just say that.
Thank you for the answers.
Oh, actually, I really appreciate the question for us because Sierra Club is a huge fan of infill housing. I know not everybody is, but we really are. My kids live here too, and they're in their 30s, and I think infill housing is awesome. So,
and for me, I'm a public transportation activist, and I really want, especially here in LA County, to see more rail transportation projects. So that's why I'm hearing like mixed information about this proposition.
Well, and I think that's the reason was it ACT? What's there for the
ACT LA?
Yes, they endorsed the opposition.
That's good to know.
45. Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, that's a coalition of some, I mean, you know this, but some 50 odd equitable housing and transit organizations.
Yeah. any
Yeah.
more questions because we love answering them.
Well, I
And
say
Sarah's
John.
not excited to go to sleep. I can tell.
Well, just one final point, responding to something I'm seeing in the chat. Um, John says that sadly CEQA was abused to the point where there is no good solution. There are many in our networks and even among the organizations that have endorsed the opposition campaign that believe that some reform is necessary for CEQA, that there is abusive litigation that we see. Unfortunately, this is not a solution. It's the proponents of the measures are leveraging this rhetoric around affordability to push forward the deregulation of projects that would harm the public, would impede our climate goals. If you look at the funders, that much is clear. It's being funded by, as Martha said, big tech, warehouse developers, corporations, the California Chamber of Commerce. These are not people who are fighting in the interests of the public and trying to reduce our costs. In fact, there are no requirements that any project subject to this measure actually reduce rent or mortgages for Californians. That if the developers experience savings, there's no obligation that they pass on those savings to Californians.
That was excellent, Gabriel. Thank you.
Yeah, the cleavage, the sort of advocacy cleavage around this is really important to note. I mean, as Martha said, Sierra Club is actually very YIMBY and housing building. So look at the funding. You can actually go to Ballotpedia. They have a nice little tool that gives it to all. Cal Matters has, I'm not sure if they have a tool like that, but the Ballotpedia link is in the agenda. It shouldn't be hard to find out who is doing the actual funding here, and that will be helpful. In fact, that's often a tool with the he said, she said kind of thing. You feel hard to know where to go. Just step aside and look at the money. When you don't have the tools to figure out who's telling the truth, you can't stick them on the witness stand. That'll be a help.
And I just want to thank you for letting us come, and also want to mention, I mean, big tech is $1 trillion in on data centers and AI, $1 trillion. They do not want to be slowed down by even a week. And so, I mean, I think it's pretty clear why this would benefit them.
Yeah, thanks. Any more questions here? I know that one of our members wants to speak on Proposition 39, but our insurance candidates have been waiting patiently for a long time. So I think we'll carry on with that agenda, which I've already oblated. I'm sorry. And then we can circle back if there's interest in that too, and if there are any general questions. So if anybody has more questions, we know how to find each other. Both, thank you very much. About no one.
It was really good to see you, Sarah. Seriously.
Thank you so much.
Both Ben Allen and Jane Kim are here. We haven't talked about how we want to hear. If you want to introduce your campaigns, that is fine with me. If you would like to go side by side, obviously you see each other all the time, and address questions to each other. No blood can flow because we're not in person, but I think you're also lovely people, both of you, and it could be very, very helpful. And I'm sure both of you are kind of tired and off somewhere else because we're so off. But Ben, are you here? Or Jane, are you here?
Hi, Cherise.
Hi. Is that Jane? Jane Kim?
I
Okay,
am.
great. And I know Ben has been in and out for a long time.
I know we're all juggling a number of different Zooms, so I'm sure he'll join us shortly.
Oh, that makes sense. So how would you like to do this? Would you like to do a couple-minute introduction, or would you like to wait for him and be face-to-face and discuss the things?
I would prefer to go now if that's okay.
That's fine with me. Please go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chair, and good evening or good night to all of you that are up late at the Children's Caucus of all caucuses. It's really an honor to be here today. My name is Jane Kim. I'm running to be our California Insurance Commissioner, and I'm really excited and honored to be in the lead across the state. In fact, we're leading in 52 out of 58 counties. And I think what it showed that our message of running on affordability and really tackling this crisis with transformative ideas is something that resonated across California from San Diego all the way to Tuolumne. And we're not just leading in counties like San Francisco, where I'm from, we're also leading in Los Angeles County. We're leading in rural counties like Butte and Calvarez, and red counties like San Bernardino and Riverside. And, I am running for this office because I believe the Insurance Commissioner's Office is a powerful executive office that has been under the radar and under leveraged and could be an incredible platform to fight for working families and consumers, and should be at the forefront of tackling the biggest crises facing our state today: wealth inequality, economic fairness, and climate disaster. Now, the insurance industry, property and casualty and specifically, is a $170 billion industry. It is now making more money from premiums than it ever has in history, and it's paying less in claims than it ever has in history. And the role of this office is to make sure that insurance is affordable and available. Otherwise, we're shutting everyday people out of their economy and their ability to drive to work, to own a home, to open a business, and to make sure that the insurance industry is playing by the rules and playing fairly, meaning that they are not discriminating based on race or gender or zip code or marital status, which it does today, and to make sure that they're paying out their claims fast and fair. Because none of us want to be the victim of a fire, illness, collision, but when it does, we want insurance to be there for us. I'm really honored to be endorsed by the California teachers, the nurses, United Domestic Workers, SEIU California, Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis and Controller Malia Cohen, Senator Bernie Sanders, and I would be honored to have your support at the e-board and your vote on the November 3rd ballot.
Thank you. I don't know, Mr. Allen has just come in. Maybe we should ask him to do a 2-minute introduction, and then if you can stick around, Ms. Kim, if that works, and we could have questions come up, or do you all each want separate times?
We have another.
You have another thing to go
Yeah.
to. Ben, are you okay if we allow questions for Jane Kim right now and circle
No
back?
problem.
Okay,
No
terrific.
problem.
Are there any questions for Ms. Kim? And we can hold those questions. They can be addressed to the both later. Anyone? Anybody? Hello, anybody with questions? Well, I guess I have a question, which has to do with sort of so many questions. Let me go to one directly related to kids. I think you've probably heard about this issue with family services and the insurance problem that was created, and the special bill that the legislator made in order to tie over family services and youth foster services placements. Is this something that the insurance commissioner is able to address? There's so many kinds of insurance. Can you tell me anything about that? Are you familiar with that situation?
Can you repeat the part right before foster care? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there was a situation in the last year and a half where foster care agencies had to basically were in crisis relating to insurance and the bridge of the insurance. And I'm hoping you know more about this than I do. So I'm sorry if the question isn't clear. I'm mostly just wondering why we're held over a barrel for these insurance problems. I think that the legislature did cobble together an emergency insurance bill at the last minute, but it's still a problem, and many foster care agencies have had to close due to rising high costs of insurance. So I'm not sure what my question is, except, to
Yeah, but
yell
I
and
but I
ring.
understand the question basically comes back to the thesis that I was speaking to earlier, which is that we have to make insurance affordable and available because we are required to have it to participate in almost any meaningful way in our economy, to, again, drive to work or to school, to qualify for a mortgage, to open a business or even a nonprofit or a foster care agency. And if we don't make it work, then we're disrupting really important services, and we're also blocking everyday Californians' ability to participate in the economy. And so the Insurance Commissioner's Office plays a very important role in overseeing the liability and property and casualty insurance industry and making sure that they, again, aren't canceling coverage, but also they're providing affordable and available insurance. And so it would be, I mean, one, this office is both an oversight body, but also a political and policy leadership office. So working closely with the state's legislature to make sure that we are solving for the insurance availability and affordability for important services like foster care agencies here in the state. And while I'm not familiar with the exact details that you brought up, Chair Bruce, this would be a very important role for the insurance commissioner's office to play in.
I appreciate that. We all need somebody fighting for us. So thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for the incipient commissioner? Do you want to tell us how we can find you at the executive board meeting coming up? Are there any events there that we can?
Yes, and we're going to put it in the chat. I will be co-hosting an event with California Young Democrats who have also endorsed me in this race on Friday at 8 p.m. And we'll put all the information and links in the chat. And I'll also have a booth. So please look out for me.
Okay, that's terrific. And Chris Stompoulos has a quick question too, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I've got a quick question. Thanks so much, and thank you to both of you for your presentations. I think especially with two Democrats running here, it's a very unique opportunity to reach out to folks who speak languages in addition to English. And so part of my comment here is a challenge, but also an invitation for both of you to be sure to do some types of outreaches, whether, however it's going to be through social media or other kind of recordings where each of you are speaking Spanish a little bit. Doesn't mean you have to be fluent, but I think it's a really good opportunity to focus in on parents who are really nervous about healthcare for their kids. They're worried about that kind of safety. And even if you don't believe that the insurance commissioner has tremendous power over healthcare insurance, I think that the voters will perceive that by you addressing it, that it means that it's part of something you as insurance commissioner will keep front and center. So it's kind of a challenge, it's a request, but I think it also creates a legacy for both of you, frankly, regardless of how the election turns out. And so if either of you want to comment on that, it would be great. And hey, if there's other languages too, that's even a bonus. It makes the Democratic Party look outstanding. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that comment. Part of my platform is to guarantee healthcare for every child in California. And while this office does not have purview over managed healthcare plan, I agree with you. It is important for statewide political leaders to take courageous and bold positions to fight for the state. And just as the governor of California can't make Medicare for kids happen, neither can the insurance commissioner's office. Yet we need statewide leaders who are going to work with the industry, our constituents statewide, the state legislature, and the governor's office to make these big, bold ideas a reality. We have to make healthcare mandated for every child in California. Should not be based on your income or your parents' employment status. And children are so affordable to provide healthcare for. Another Californian, a Republican, Richard Nixon, actually ran on the platform for Medicare for children. I want to make his vision a reality here in the state. And as for your challenge, I was the only member on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors who, for every year of the 8 years that I served, had bilingual Spanish speakers and Cantonese speakers on my staff. It was incredibly, and I only was allowed to hire 3 people. It was incredibly important for me to make sure that we were able to speak to our members of community in the languages that they should be spoken to. And in my campaigns, having lit in Arabic and Vietnamese and Tagalog was also very important. And I'll make sure the insurance commissioner's office is able to provide this critical service in multiple languages that our Californians speak. Thank you for that challenge.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you showing up so late, Ms. Kim, and I don't see any other questions, and hopefully Mr. Allen heard them.
And Jane, I will just say, and that's why I voted for you at convention. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope that Mr. Allen might be able to address some of these questions too. So if you're able to stick around, that's great, but I understand everybody's juggling other events. By any chance, is Ben Allen here?
Yeah, I'm here. Hey there.
Awesome. Terrific. So you can proceed. Thank you. How you like. You can address some of these questions. You can give us a couple minutes of introduction, whatever works for you. And I apologize for how late the hour is.
Yeah, no, all good. Ben Allen, proud dad, representative of big portions of Los Angeles County now for over a decade in the state legislature. former school board member, a former chair of the education committee, passionate about public education, and really proud to be supported in this race by the California Federation of Teachers, our firefighters, UNAC nurses, wonderful coalition of folks from Adam Schiff to Alex Padilla to Jane Fonda, and environmental leaders, and the California Consumer Federation, most important perhaps, given the extraordinarily important role that this job plays in protecting consumers. I've been fighting at the front lines of consumer reforms and protections, taken on the fossil fuel industry, petrochemical interests, the utilities, insurers, car dealers, hospices. I'm not taking a dime of insurance money, utility money, fossil fuel industry money, because it's so important for this commission to be really independent of the industry that it regulates. I'm somebody who also represents big portions of the fire zone in Los Angeles. And so much of our time has been focused on trying to help those people who were impacted by the fires with a really strong customer service orientation, helping hundreds and hundreds of people get the payouts that they deserved in the wake of those terrible fires. But I've now been running lots of legislation trying to penalize unnecessary delays in payouts by the insurance industry, making sure people have more information and more time before they get dropped, making sure we have a truly science-based set of standards associated with smoke damage. Also, that we go after price gouging as people get displaced after major disasters. And I'm proud to be endorsed by the California Democratic Renters Council as well. I did hear those questions. I actually was a proud supporter of AB 2496, which was Gail Pellerin's bill that basically provided some additional kind of assistance and some more flexibility to foster family agencies, so as to make sure that they were given kind of some additional protections and they were able to continue to doing their work. But certainly, it's really important to have someone who's a child's advocate in place in the insurance commissioner's position to make sure that insurance issues don't get in the way of important foster care and foster services. As to the final question, I'm fully fluent in Spanish. I studied in Mexico. We've actually posted many things on social media in Spanish, especially talking about the unique challenges of language minorities, which I'm particularly sensitive to. I'm the son of an immigrant. I've got a lot of diversity on my staff, including a lot of foreign language ability on my staff, because we've always been so passionate about making sure that we're able to really respond to and represent everybody who represents our beautiful cloth of California, and so I'm passionate about protecting language minorities. It's a major issue, in fact, because the insurance system is very difficult to navigate. It's hard enough for even people with law degrees to figure out half the time. And imagine what it's like for someone coming from a different country, from a different system, who doesn't speak English as a native language, and all the challenges that might present. And I've actually have a plan associated with ensuring that we really are going to reach out to and engage with immigrant communities, language minority communities, and make sure that they're really protected. I'm proud to have, I'm really pleased that Jane's advocating childcare for all. I'm proud to actually voted for childcare for all, regardless of immigration status, as we expanded access to Medi-Cal to all of our immigrant communities here in the state of California. That's something that strengthens our families and something I've been proud to support. I've been a very pro-kid, pro-working family legislator, proud to be endorsed by a long list of wonderful Democratic clubs and unions, and great Democratic leaders, including real champions for kids. And I'd be really honored to have your support at the e-board. I'm also doing a breakfast on Saturday morning. You'd be welcome to attend. We've got a booth as well. And Sam put that I'm endorsed by El Informador del Valle and also La Opinión, probably the two most important Spanish language newspapers in the state, and have done extensive work on Spanish language media, trying to make sure that our Spanish speaking community all over the state understands their options and understands that with me they'll have a real champion, un campeón, looking out for them if I'm elected to this position.
Thank you. Thank you for remembering and addressing some of these questions too. I didn't mean to, put pressure on you. Have time to introduce yourself. Did Mr. Allen check all the boxes and get some of those questions in, or does anyone have additional ones here? I think Jen Kim is also listening in the background.
I think the only one that Ben, that maybe you didn't get a chance to answer directly was the issue about really, I guess, responding to the fear among immigrant parents with regard to healthcare? And even though that's not under the official purview of the insurance commissioner, how will you lead to calm down some of those fears?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question. And I'm really proud of the fact that when even before Trump took office, our Democratic Senate caucus took the lead on ensuring that we were going to put real public resources into protecting immigrant communities, and we set aside tens of millions of dollars to help to fund the State Department of Justice, county district attorneys and city attorneys, and also immigrant serving legal services organizations to make sure there was a real apparatus in place to protect immigrant communities, because we anticipated not quite as bad as it's gotten, but we certainly anticipated some of the abuses that we've seen from this awful Trump administration, and we've been stepping up to try to fill in as many of the gaps in funding cuts as we possibly can. It's been a massive challenge, but it's been a big priority of ours, certainly, especially if you look at the Senate proposals. And I'm we've got I'm really proud to have our very first Latina pro tem and first mother pro tem. And I was a proud supporter of hers, and she's been a fantastic leader and really leading the way for our Senate caucus and making sure that we're standing by our immigrant communities, especially in the healthcare space. And again, take a look at my voting record, the positions I've taken. I've been a strong supporter of our immigrant communities, and I've protested. I've stood with communities. We've provided Know Your Rights sessions. We pushed out information to our immigrant communities in our district, and I've been part of our broader Senate Democratic caucus efforts to really put serious resources into protecting our immigrant communities who are very scared right now.
Thank you. And it was brought up earlier in this marathon meeting that being a Dem on Dem campaign, maybe you would be interested, both of you, and I'll talk to you offline about this, but we could do what the Children's Caucus calls a conversation, with the both of you, if that was of interest, discussing, insurance matters in the children's realm.
I'd love that. I mean, I'm very, listen, again, I'm a dad of two little ones. I got a 7-year-old, a 2-year-old. I care about this stuff deeply. And I just appreciate that. I really appreciate the fact that the caucus is there, making sure that the needs of children are at the table at the party. And so I'd welcome that opportunity.
Great. We'll try and do that. It's a dusty road ahead till November, right? So
tell me about it. Yeah. This is where we are, but I'd be so honored to have your support. I got a long track record of standing with you and standing for your priorities.
I guess one question I have is how it is that we resolve this sort of non-conflict conflict. Obviously we have to choose one or the other of you, but you both have seem like terrific components of a whole. How do we show up with the best of all possible worlds at the end of the day?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'd just say, look, I've got a lot of respect for Jane. I'm somebody who's really experienced the dysfunction of the insurance system up close in my own community in the wake of these terrible fires. I've got a real plan to address the affordability challenges. This is not an academic subject for me. This is something that I'm really grounded in. And I've been working on these issues for many years, from the climate bond to taking on the insurance industry through legislation. So with me, you've got a real track record of somebody who's been working really intensely to protect consumers and stand up for working people in the legislature, deep relationships in the legislature, a lot of experience with taking on the insurance industry directly and winning many, many times. And so tons of respect for her. But I think, with me, you've got somebody who's actually, been actually doing the work, standing up for consumers in this particular policy area. Because I've seen the impact of bad behavior on my constituents and my friends.
Right. I think we all have, and it's true. And the best part about this is that maybe it's the beginning of we'll have more time to explore this a little bit more sanely and not at 10 o'clock at night in the future. We'll make a plan for that. I think Jane Kim is listening, and I imagine she'd be up for it too. So thank you to our caucus member. I think it was Kristen Polis, or maybe it was Faraz, who suggested it. So we'll try and arrange for that in the future. Does anybody have any other questions for now? With the proviso that, this is to be continued. Okay. Thank you very much for your patience. And is Faraz still here? Because
Yes, I'm here.
okay. All right. So he'd mentioned that he wanted to say something about Proposition no. Proposition 39, the voter ID. I just call it Proposition no.
Yeah, well, correct. That's the correct way to vote, but I like to at least explain a bit about it, if that's okay.
Yeah, but first of all, before we do that, let me just thank Mr. Allen very much for being here with us. And if there, you've put the information in the chat, well, we'll find you in San Diego and to be continued.
Great. I really appreciate it. I got to hear about an hour of the discussion. I just appreciate the thoughtfulness everyone has taken to all these tough issues that we're all facing at e-board and on the ballot. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Faraz, I'll give you a couple minutes to speak about Proposition 39 off the cuff.
Thank you very much. And good evening, everyone. I want to talk about Proposition 39, which, for those that are unaware, it's a proposition that is basically being brought by conservative and Trump supporters that will make it more difficult for Californian voters to vote. What this proposition does is it will require voters who vote by mail to write the last four of their social security numbers on the outside of their vote by mail ballots. It will require registered voters to present a government ID or passport when they go to vote in person. It forces the state to create a program to make voter ID cards that's separate from a state-issued ID card, and the state must provide it to a voter upon request. It's estimated to cost the state ranging from tens of millions of dollars to hundreds of millions of dollars for state and local counties to fulfill the new requirements and update their election procedures. Now, for the consequences or the cons, this proposition will target citizens with no ID cards. It makes vote by mail less secure by having the voter's social security number visible outside of their ballots. For those that vote in person, it will cause longer wait times because it adds an additional step for election workers, and voters will need additional time to find their ID cards while in line. It will cause a longer time needed to process vote by mail ballots and increases the likelihood that ballots will not count. And I've even read one opposition point that said there's the way how this proposition is written, there's no curing process allowed for the social security number section. This is a Trump federal overreach attempt to interfere with California, California elections. And an argument that you're likely to hear from supporters is that this proposition is bipartisan, that Democrats and Republicans want voter ID laws. And yet, when you investigate the main group supporting this ballot measure, which is California for Voters ID, it's a group funded by 9 billionaires, which a few of them are Richard Yulee, Rick Caruso, and Nicole Shananan, who was the running mate for Robert F. Kennedy back in 2024, the same Robert F. Kennedy that's currently running our U.S. Health and Human Services. And lastly, just one last point. As someone who used to work for the county register office, I've personally seen how the system works, and it's already secure, transparent, and safe. But if this proposition passes, it's only going to hurt and depress voter turnouts. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for that information. And I would just add that RFK is actually running our health and human services into the ground, not running it. So,
yes.
Just a clarification. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Faraz about Proposition 39, otherwise known as Proposition Just No? Anyone? Not hearing any right now. I did attend a a Dem Club meeting in which it was interesting to hear a otherwise very good Dem make arguments for that proposition that were based on sort of stuff that isn't happening, and sort of fantasy of how, if these things were set up in a really safe way, then they'd be supportive of Proposition 39. But they're not set up in a safe way. So this data being available, just a lot of misinformation running around. So thank you for your clarifications. And it's also linked in the agenda to the Ballotpedia piece. Have I nattered on? Anybody have any more questions? Lots of blank screens here right now. I guess it is now 10:07. So we've been here for 3 hours and it's probably time to push on. But I really thank you, all you hardy political listeners and thinkers. I will see you soon in San Diego, or we will see you again on our next CADEM Children's Caucus Zoom. There's nothing to close or gavel close because we already closed the meeting. We're just an open Zoom meeting. In fact, if anyone has anything to say, please feel free to say it. Otherwise, it might be dinner time.
Sarah, thanks so much for your willingness to consider a conversation with both Ben and with Jane going future. So if you want to put any kind of little committee together, I'd certainly be glad to help. So thank you.
That's terrific. And thanks for speaking up and reminding me who it actually was who had suggested it. Yeah, I think it's a terrific idea. I really appreciate it. Honestly, Children's Caucus has done these conversations, and our board had discussed how we would love to have a conversation with the incipient governor. And then somebody pointed out to me, he's got better things to do than come talk to us. But I think this is a terrific alternative. As you point out, it's a Dem on Dem race. It's to everyone's advantage to actually have this long conversation. So where a candidate is actually focused on the Republican, it may not be the best use of their time. But where we are a little safer here and freer, I think it's clear sailing and a great idea. Michele has her hand up. You got to unmute, Michele.
Okay.
Yep.
As I had mentioned, we may make a decision in the party on Saturday. This is the vote that we all have, all of us that are e-board credentialed folks, on Saturday at 4. So just be aware that I'm honestly hoping that we do make that decision on Saturday.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. I've been planning on saying that and forgot that. Yes, indeed. If you're coming to San Diego, the vote is at 4 o'clock. Make sure that your email address is correct with when you sign in with the credentials folks. And then also, if you have a flight out Saturday at 10:30, you might want to consider another later flight. I think that a lot of these propositions are going to be pulled, and I'm sure our chair is very good at keeping things rolling, but it may be a bit of a lengthy slog there. But as Michele says, stay tuned to actually accomplishing a straight up declarative endorsement at 4 p.m. Saturday via email. Thank you. So be sure to bring your phone or whatever. All right. Any more comments? No. Seeing that it's 10:10, I will bid everyone a very good night. Thank you again so much for being here, and take care. Be in touch. Send information for the newsletters. Oh, Michele, did you have more to say?
No, I thought I was taking my hand down. See you all in San Diego.
See you soon. Take care. Bye.